Welcome to another episode of the Victory Podcast, driven by Audi. I'm your host, Keely Eure, joined by my co-host and former USC quarterback, Cody Kessler. Cody, we are back in the studio for our first in-person show since December. Glad to have you back in the studio.
Yeah, it feels like it's been forever. And elephant in the room. I mean, other people have seen it, but I haven't yet. A new backdrop, a new setting.
Oh, you haven't even seen this?
This is my first time besides
Wow.
Trojans Live on Monday that I've been a part of this room. So they've done a great job. There's a lot going on. I mean, it's very busy, but it's cool. There's a lot of cool stuff in here and got the roses behind me and the trophy and all that. But yeah, it's good to be back. We've done a lot of at-home episodes, mainly because I have a son now. He's 3 months old. Yay. And it's been tough for me to get out of the house. But yeah, we've got some free time now. My wife's been amazing, and it's good to get back and talk some USC football.
You're humbled, too, because you did get out of the house. You had a 2-week stint at the NFL Network. So excited for you. So happy to see you get your kind of debut in that sense. And I'll say, people, be happy that he's on the show for whenever he's on the show, because this man is a shooting star. So very happy for you, Cody.
Well, I appreciate it too, Keely. And hey, it was all your vision, right? We made the joke before about when we announced it that you were the Ed Ogeron at practice watching me and recruiting,
the Sam Darnold,
inviting me to do the podcast, and obviously it's kind of taken off from there, and I got this opportunity. But it was cool. Yeah, I did Good Morning Football for 2 weeks. Unbelievable. I mean, everyone there behind the scenes, the producers, the co-hosts. I had so much fun. A lot of great people there. Doesn't quite compete with the Victory Podcast here and all of us.
Sure.
You know, I gave them some tips on how to grow their show like we do. But
oh, goodness.
No, it was awesome. I did the first week, and it was only supposed to do 1 week. And then it went so well, they invited me back for a second week, and hopefully get to do some more of that in the future. But, yeah, I got a great connection and relationship with them now. So we'll see what happens from there.
So, like I said, please enjoy the time we have with Cody while we have it. This man is a rising star in the business, as you know if you listen to this podcast. So once again, very happy for you, Cody. It's crazy. We talk about how much time has flown. We're talking about spring football. I feel like we just finished the regular season, and here we are. The first day of spring camp is already in the books. We're talking the spring camp narratives. We're going kind of overall picture. I know sometimes, Cody, we go like position group, roster. We go very detailed, and I figured why not go more overall? Let's look at the narratives and the questions we'll be talking about this spring.
Yeah, we say all that, but knowing me, I'm probably going to get pretty deep in the roster because I spent many hours studying it and going over it. And it's tough with the transfer portal nowadays. You don't really know who's here, who's going to be the actual early enrollee, whether it's the transfer guys or the high school guys, and then who's coming in the fall. And then you have to wait to talk about some of these exciting signees that we have that aren't here yet. But, yeah, I mean, we'll talk pretty much every position, but more of what the storyline with each position is going to be instead of going player by player and just things to look for over the next couple of weeks. And this is Wednesday, so they already had one practice yesterday, and it's crazy. It's 2025's here.
We're rolling.
The season's right around the corner, and we're starting off with 15 practices in spring.
Well, excited to dive into it. Before we do, just a couple reminders. Be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Be sure to look out for a tweet or a question box either on Twitter or Instagram. Our socials are VictoryPodUSC. You can ask us questions there. We do have questions, so we will get to those as well in this episode. Thanks to everyone who contributed in that way. You can also send us a text that's in the audio description of each episode. There's a link there. And also, I just want to say thank you to everyone who listened to the Chad Bowden podcast. That was super fun to have him on.
Very well done, too.
Well, thank you. Yeah.
Also, real quick, come to me, camera. Let me give Keely her flowers.
No, please.
If you didn't see the other night, she was on CBS, a little cameo.
No, please.
After the unfortunate Juju Watkins injury. But it was a big win for the Trojans. And then also the Chad Bowden interview. That was unbelievably well done. That was so good. And if anybody hasn't watched it, please go back and watch it. It's doing great right now. The comments, the views, everything, very well put together. Also on social media, some of the clips on Instagram. But, yeah, if you're not excited about USC football, go watch Chad Bowden's interview, and I promise you will be very excited. You have some great questions as well.
Thank you.
You could tell you guys had a great feedback, and that's good, though, because when you have that back and forth, he's going to have that with players as well and recruits and parents. And he's a guy that's very personable, and you can tell that he can relate to anybody. So that was a great interview, very well done. And also the star on CBS the other day as well.
Oh, please. No, it was fun to get to know him. He's one of those guys who, within 5 minutes of him sitting down, I felt like we were kind of on a level where I could kind of joke with him and troll him a little bit, which I don't normally feel that way.
I mean, but imagine being a parent or a sister or a family member or an actual recruit.
Yeah.
And you sit down in 5 minutes, you're like, I want to go be a part of what this guy's a part of. And that's USC and the vision that he has for the team. So, yeah, that was awesome. It was cool to see in a personal level. I knew he did some stuff in front of the media, but have that one-on-one interview, get to know him a little bit better, I thought was awesome. So that was very well done.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And you mentioned women's basketball. I do have to give a PSA that this will probably be the last spring podcast is the first and last for a little bit. I'm going to be with the women's team during their postseason run. We're about to go to Spokane tomorrow, actually, Thursday. So as long as they can make it, which hopefully is a long time, I will be there. So that means I will not be doing quick hits or this podcast. Actually, I mean, depending on hotel Wi-Fi, we might be able to pull off a podcast. We'll see. I don't know.
Don't overpromise and underdeliver, because that's been our history.
I know, it really is.
I was saying, hey, we're going to do episodes every week, and then life happens.
I'm keeping the tradition alive, Cody.
But this is for a good reason. I will say that's why this is going to kind of be an empty the notebook episode about what to look for at spring, and then when there is time, and hopefully it's not anytime soon, that means that the women are still winning and going on. But when there is time, we can kind of recap everything that's happening. And then I'm probably going to post a couple clips here and there. Again, here's me overpromising, but I'm going to try to keep up with everything and post some stuff from home and be a little bit better at posting on Instagram and some of that stuff, especially with the momentum from the Good Morning Football and all the things going on. But yeah, it's that's priority one right now. I understand. And Juju Watkins going down was just terrible to see. But you know what? You had a great quote to it on the CBS was what Kiki said. Eure, she said, we worked too hard to let one player going down ruin everything we work for. And I guarantee you Juju would say the same thing.
Yeah.
Like, hey, go do it for me. Yeah. Right? Even though I'm not out there, I know what you guys are capable of. And she believes in the team. And it felt like so like just ominous and sad and everything, which it is, but there's still a lot to play for this team. And Juju's going to be their number one fan. I truly believe that. And I think she's going to come back stronger than ever when she gets healed.
I think there was a part of it that was just so surreal. Like, you put her in the category of, like, you know, she's so superhuman on the court.
True.
That it's like that can't happen to her.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's not supposed to.
It's not supposed to.
She's Superwoman. Like, she can't get hurt. That's not going to happen. And then when it does, you could have heard a pin drop, and I know you guys were all at the game. It was,
but also the Galen Center crowd really rose to the challenge.
Yeah.
I think it could have been, and I think Jordan Moore tweeted this, it could have been like a funeral of sorts of like, oh my God, our season's over, this is terrible. But the energy that they had, and I talked to the players after the game too, they were feeding off of the Galen Center crowd. It was one of those things where if you were there, you're going to remember that moment in that crowd, because it was just like, this is what the Trojan family is about. So it was just really cool, and just props to everyone who was there and who cheered the women of Troy on, because it was definitely one of those things where we kind of all collectively had to stick together and get through that moment.
Yeah, and if you can, go to Spokane. Let's get it done. Yeah. Good luck to the women of Troy. Hopefully they can go pull it off.
For sure. And I say this like I'm going to be gone for like 4 weeks. It's probably going to be at the most, if they win the championship, it will be like a week off. So we'll be back soon. It'll give some time for some narratives that we're about to talk about to marinate. Perfect. So we can come back and kind of recap a little bit. But without further ado, let's dive into those spring football narratives. The first one is, I think, everyone's mind, especially from the questions we got. Who to expect at quarterback, QB1? What are your thoughts there, Cody?
Yeah, I'm going to start with the guy that I think is going into spring QB1 is Jaden Maiava. And Lincoln said this the other day on Trojans Live, but this is a huge opportunity for him, right? This is what you want. This is the perfect situation for Jaden Maiava, because he's going into this spring as the guy. Now he has 4 games under his belt from last year, and it spoke volumes when Lincoln Riley and his staff didn't go out and get a top-tier transfer quarterback this offseason. That told me that there's a belief and there's a trust in what they saw in the small sample size of Jaden Maiava. Now, in those 4 games, I know there were some glaring issues. There were some things that didn't go right. It wasn't perfect, but there was a lot of upside to be excited about, right? His skill set is unbelievable. He has a strong arm. He can make many different throws from different platforms, in the pocket, out of the pocket, has that big play capability at any point in time. Very good athlete. A little frustrating for me, though, because, and I don't want to say advocated for, but one of the pros we talked about with Jaden starting was that he would be more of a factor in the run game. Yeah. That was non-existent in those 4 games, and that's something I'd like to see a little bit more of. He only had 18 rushing yards in those 4 starts. Now, I know sacks factor into that, but there weren't a lot of sacks. It just, there was a lack of production on the ground game with him as a runner, and there were times for him to do it. He just wasn't really taking off and using his feet like I thought we would see from him. That's something he can improve on, but the most important thing I will say for him, and it's been a glaring issue since he took over, and it was a little bit as a freshman at UNLV, he's got to protect the football. If you want to solidify yourself as a starter here at USC, you've got to be able to protect the football. I've said it before, and I'll say it again a million times. You've got to know when it's time to be Superman. You've got to know when it's time to put the glasses on, take the cape off, and be Clark Kent and check the ball down and not turn it over and not force a throw and not fumble when you're backed up in your own red zone, you're in your own side of the field. You've got to know it's okay to just throw it away and move on. Yeah. The defense is going to win. You just can't compound the problem. The other thing that he needs to do, and I think is very important for him during this spring and the entire offseason, is build that confidence. You can't go around now. And I know it's tough last year when Miller's a starter and then you take over the last 4 games to walk
situation.
in and say, I'm QB1. I get that. But for him, this offseason, he needs to have that confidence, that swagger, that belief that I'm the guy and this is my team. And that starts with the coaching staff as well, right? They don't want to put pressure on him to where it feels like, okay, you've got to go perform or else there's someone waiting for you. Having a 5-star like Hassan Longstreet breathing down your neck is enough pressure already.
Yeah.
They need to go out there and make Jaden feel like, I'm the guy. You are the leader of this football team. This is your job to lose. You're the guy. We trust in you. We're going to talk to you as if you're the starter. We're going to treat you as a starter. We're going to watch film as you're the starter, because when you have a coaching staff and a head coach and a team around you that believes in you, and I've been there before with quarterback battles and then taking over as a guy, I promise you it does wonders for your confidence and your ability to go out there and perform. So I can't wait to see that. But I will say this, the best thing that Jaden Maiava has, his secret weapon, is Lincoln Riley. Coach Riley is, and I will die on this hill, the best college coach when it comes to developing quarterbacks, probably ever, right? He's produced multiple number 1 overall draft picks that are quarterbacks. He's produced multiple Heisman Trophy winners. He coached now a Super Bowl winning quarterback in the NFL, or he coached him in college and now he won a Super Bowl in the NFL. He knows what it takes to get the best out of his quarterback. So that is big for Jaden. Now, if I'm Jaden, I'm going in this offseason and watching film of Jalen Hurts, of watching Kyler Murray, watching Caleb Williams when he was here. Go back and watch Baker Mayfield. What did they do so well that helped them be successful in Lincoln Riley's scheme? That's the most important thing for Jaden Maiava. But like I said, there's other guys that we'll talk about in a minute, but it is Jaden Maiava's job to lose. I expect him to go out there and be dominant this spring.
What's interesting is we always talk about how you're kind of on the same page of the coaching staff, even though you haven't heard necessarily their thoughts or what they've said lately. Yesterday, on Tuesday, it was fascinating hearing Coach Riley talk about the progression that he's seen this offseason with Maiava. And he basically said what you highlighted. The 2 things that you said were all mental, and Riley highlighted that as well. He said he's not a guy who you're going to be worried about. Is he working hard enough? Is he like getting in the film room? He was like, honestly, he's his own worst critic. He was like, we almost need him to be more confident. We need him to trust in his ability. And obviously, like the situation that he was in last season, that doesn't help your confidence when you're thrown into it. And now you have to perform with a couple games left in the season. So I'm sure, and Riley acknowledged that as well. He was like, it was a unique situation, don't get me wrong. But he said that he's seen encouraging signs from Maiava where he's getting more comfortable. He's finding his voice as a leader. But there is that concern that he's a little too hard on himself. And you talk about it. If you're a quarterback, if you're anyone, you got to get out of your head. And it's so funny. Riley talked about just describing him as a perfectionist. And I was like, is Lincoln Riley talking about me right now?
Yeah, we're all guilty of it. We
all
do it. But that sometimes people always say that, you could be your own worst enemy. And I struggled with that early on when I got to USC. I remember texting my dad before I even got a chance to compete with Max Whittick. We went out and threw at just a players-only practice. I think we threw together with his quarterback coach or something, and he threw better than I did at that one little session. And I remember texting my dad saying, I'm not going to be able to beat this guy out. I didn't have a great session. I'm already behind the curve. I'm not going to be able to do it. And in reality, it was just take a deep breath. You're fine.
Yeah.
You haven't reached your full potential. Don't be so hard on yourself. If I threw a pick at practice when I was in a quarterback competition as a freshman, as a sophomore, when Matt Barkley was still here, I felt like I had no chance anymore. It was an uphill battle. I'm done. I better transfer. I can't do it. Once I got out of that mindset, and it's with broadcasting as well, right? Doing Good Morning Football, and you and I joke off camera, but we want to put out such a great product, and everyone does at work, at your job. Sometimes you don't have to be perfect. It's okay to have flaws. It
almost hinders you in that sense.
It does, because then you start overthinking about, I don't want to mess up, right? And something I learned along the way is say, I'm going to do this great instead of, I hope I don't do this wrong. You've got to believe that you're going to go out there and compete, and that's great for Jaden to have that. And there are 2 very good quarterbacks behind him. So it's going to be tough, and one of those guys is 5-star freshman Hassan Longstreet. So it's not you're the guy and there's no one behind you. He's going to get pushed, and there's going to be a competition aspect to that, and you want that at USC, right? That's a good problem to have. But at the same time, you can't be looking over your shoulder the whole time. You got to have that confidence, those blinders, and go out and do what you do best.
Well, you mentioned Hassan Longstreet. Riley had praise for him on Tuesday, mentioning how dedicated he's been already to the program. We saw him at the Vegas Bowl. He was like, Riley said, he's spent his own money. He's spent his own time to come here and be, as a local kid around USC as much as he could within the rules before he was actually enrolled. And then once he was enrolled, he was kind of that nerdy football IQ guy. It reminds me of someone over here.
You gotta be.
So he said that Hassan is further ahead than most freshmen at this point, and it was practice number 1 for him, his first collegiate practice. So I'm sure that's a great sign for Riley that Hassan is in there in the books and ready and eager to learn.
I'm curious too, and I don't know if you know the answer. Anyone at home, is this a new thing to where the quarterbacks or early enrollees can get to campus before the bowl game? I know it's been happening recently, but I don't think we could do that. I don't remember that being an option. I think you had to wait for the next semester. I was just curious about how that works.
I don't know the exact rules, but I just know the anecdote in my head that's sticking out in my mind is that I remember, and this is a throwback, JT Daniels used to come to PRPs in summer and he would watch.
Yeah.
So I think that was one of those things where if you were electing on your own time and dime, as Riley said, to come up and be around the team, you could.
Okay.
I don't know the exact specifications of how much time you could only spend around them, but it is something where I think if you're local and you want to, you can do that.
I do remember, too, some of the guys. I think we had a couple guys. Jana Harris would come out to the PRPs because those were open for guys that come out that were already committed, that were in the area. But I thought it was so cool now that they're allowed to do that. And that's not just USC. That's other places around the country where you see these quarterbacks going out there, or some of these younger guys that are going to be early enrollees getting that jump start. And that is so valuable, especially with Hassan Longstreet, who's coming into a quarterback competition, right? Like I said, Maeva is presumably the starter, but I am very high on this freshman. I really am. I love his tape. He's got a very quick release, great accuracy. He understands how to throw guys open, and he understands ball placement. And when you get to the college and NFL level, you're going to see times where a guy's covered, but he's open. And what I mean by that is if I'm running an over route and there's a defender on me, but his eyes aren't to the quarterback, I can put the ball high and away. I can throw it low and away. I can throw it around the defensive back that his eyes are not to me and throw a guy open. That's so important. Or if it's a back shoulder type throw or throwing it over the top or knowing how to throw away from a defender, he is doing that at the high school level, which is very early. That is impressive to do at his level. I love his athleticism as well. He's very good at running the zone read, the RPOs. I watched his film at Centennial. He does a great job of knowing when to pull it, knowing when to give it, knowing when to pull it and make the throw, and then he doesn't make a bad play worse. I think that's important too.
Yeah.
Now you get to college and you get into competition and you want to be the guy, that'll amp up a little bit, but you've got to keep that. His entire time in high school, over the 3 years, he never had more than 7 interceptions in a season.
Wow.
That's very impressive because he threw the ball a ton. he took a lot of deep shots. There were a lot of down the field throws, but he was very smart with knowing when to take the shot and knowing when to throw it away. So I expect him to keep that up when he gets here. Now, do I think this is a real open 100% competition? Yes and no. And the reason I say yes is because of how talented this kid is. Mm-hmm. I really believe that he can come in and push Jaden Maeva for a chance to be the starter. I do think he can come in if he's ready right away, and it's going to take spring and fall camp to get to that point, but he can really be considered an option for day one or for the opening game to be the starter. I do believe that. The reason I say no a little bit is because I don't want him to be rushed. And I know Coach Riley knows this, but if you come in as a 5-star or just as a recruit in general, and you want him to be the guy, and everyone's so excited about him, and let's get him out there, let's have him be the starter, and he goes in there maybe before he's ready, you're going to hurt his development more than you help his development. Now, there's other positions to where you can play as a freshman and get thrown in the fire, and we'll talk about that with the D-line in a little bit. That happened last year, but at quarterback spot, you can't mess that up. You cannot mess up a quarterback's development. Coach Riley's the best in the country at doing that, so I'm not worried about it, but if he goes in there too early, and he's not quite ready, and he starts making some bad decisions or making some bad reads, or the game's just a little bit too quick for him, he starts forcing some throws and gets out of what he's good at, it's tough to overcome that and then rebuild that confidence. And you're going to have those negative thoughts in your head going forward. So, yes, would I love to see Hassan Longstreet on the field in Cardinal and Gold? 100%. Will he be on the field and be a star for this football team in the future? I absolutely believe so. The biggest question is, when is that going to be? Right? Yep. So don't rush him, but I do think he has a bright future here at USC. And then the other guy in the room that I'm excited about, and I think it works hand in hand with Longstreet, is Sam Heward. Yep. For those of you who don't know, we got a transfer quarterback from Utah, Sam Heward. Is Luke Heward's nephew?
Yes.
I believe. Correct?
And Riley made a quip about that. He was praising Heward for coming in and transitioning well, and he said, if he can just overcome being coached by his uncle, I think he'll do pretty well.
There's going to be that little extra, hey, I've known you since you were a kid.
Yeah.
Might be a little bit harder on him, but I love this for 2 reasons. One, it adds depth to the quarterback room, much needed depth, and if Longstreet's not ready, then you don't want him to be the 2 because he could be one play away if Maeva gets hurt. You have a veteran in there that can go in and take over if Hassan's not ready. But the other part of that is, for those of you who don't know, Sam Heward was a 5-star quarterback coming out of high school. Was a top quarterback, was one of the best in the country, goes to Washington, doesn't quite work out there. Then he goes to Cal Poly. After that, he transfers to Utah for a year. Now he's here at USC. Why I think it's so important to have him in that quarterback room is because of Hassan Longstreet, who's now a 5-star or was a 5-star quarterback coming to the college level, there are expectations. There's pressure. There's all these things that come along with being a 5-star top-tier quarterback.
Yeah.
And obviously, Sam, it didn't work out the way that he wanted it to, but he can learn from all of that. And now he can relay some of those messages to Hassan, saying, hey, this is what I wish maybe I did differently of handling the pressure and the expectations. This is something that I maybe could have approached a little differently at Washington that you can learn from. So now he has Sam, who's been in his shoes 3 or 4 years ago, to learn from and how to do things the right way, how to do things the wrong way, things that he could fix or things that he wanted to fix, because you can learn as much from someone that was a 5-star that comes in and is going to be a first overall pick and plays right away as much as you can from a guy who didn't quite pan out or isn't where he wanted to be as a 5-star with all the pressure. You can learn a lot from both of those guys. So I think Sam Heward coming to the quarterback room is a great pickup, not only for Hassan, but for the room as a whole. And it's a veteran guy, a leader. He knows Luke very well, and I think that'll be a great 1-2-3 combo with those guys through spring and fall camp.
All right, well, I want to move to our next position group. The question I have for the running backs, what does the room look like now? And it's interesting. It follows the tradition of Riley getting a transfer running back who's established and older, but he got 2 this time around. What are you seeing from the construction of that room, Cody?
Yeah, it just feels like, well, it's true. It doesn't feel like every year that Coach Riley's been here, this is his 4th year now, there is a transfer running back that comes in and is pretty much the MVP of the offense, right? That comes in as a huge asset on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, the first year, Travis Dye, who we were huge fans of here at the Victory Pod.
Oh, yeah.
Then you have Marshawn Lloyd the next year, who comes in and plays great. Woody Marks, MVP of the football team.
Oh, my
Last year, I'll throw Austin Jones in there as well, who was a transfer. So there's just every year that's kind of been the formula. So there's 2 guys I want to talk about first that are transfers that can be that next guy. The first one for me is Wayman Jordan. And we had him on Trojans Live the other day. He's awesome, and he's the type of guy you want in the locker room. He told me right before we started, he said, I'm shaking, I'm nervous.
He's like, not gonna lie, I'm kind of shaking here.
But you know what that tells me? He's all ball all the time. I'm not here for the interviews. I'm not here for the publicity. I'm here to play ball, and that's what I want to do. And his film is so impressive at Hutchinson Community College. And you may say, okay, Cody, that's a JUCO. How do you know he's going to transition to the Power 4, to the Big Ten? Go watch his tape, please. His game translates to our offense, to what Lincoln Riley runs here. They run a ton of guard tackle pulling. They run a ton of tight end motion, window dressing, tight end tackle pulling. Then they'll run guard tight end pull. That's so important because they do have some duo, some downhill man blocking to where it's pick a hole and go. But when you play in a scheme that has guard tackle and a lot of pullers, you have to know to be patient, right? And that's what Woody Marks did so well last year of, I'm not going to sit back there, dance around, do a bunch of crazy moves. I'm going to be patient, let the guard pulling around develop, let the blocks take place, and then I'm going to put my foot in the ground, make a decision, and get north and south. That's what Wayman Jordan does. He's going to be, in my opinion, a great transition into this offense. It's going to be an easy transition for him to come in day one and potentially compete for that starting spot. The other guy that I'm excited about is Eli Sanders, transfer from New Mexico.
Yeah.
He's played at a little higher level. He's been at the Division I level. I know New Mexico's not in the Power 4, but he knows what it takes to compete at high-level Division I football. His film is very impressive. He is a home run hitter. He has big play capability at any point in time, averaged over 7 yards a carry. And that's not just, a couple rushes with 100 yards and he had some big plays. He had over 1,000 yards rushing, was averaging over 7 yards a carry. He had breakaway speed, got great vision. I'm very excited to see what he can do. The only thing I will say with those 2 guys that we've had before with some of the transfers, and Wayman Jordan talked about this a little bit, neither of them were really big assets in the pass game. And that's something in Lincoln Riley's offense that you've got to have a back that can catch the ball out of the backfield. Woody Marks led the team in receiving last year as a running back. Now, Woody Marks is a rare breed. There's not a lot of running backs that have the ball skills and the route running that Woody Marks has. So that's a tough comparison, but would like to see them be a little bit more factor in the pass game this year. And then the guy that I'm most excited about isn't a transfer guy. He's a guy that's already on the roster, and that's Brian Jackson. Now, there's a little cause for concern if you're a Trojan fan, and I am, but he is our leading returner from last year, the most experienced, and he only had 36 carries. So with Quentin Joyner leaving, with Woody Marks going to the NFL, there's not a lot of experience in this room of being on this roster. Now, Wayman Jordan and Eli Sanders have played a lot of football, but outside of that, it is Brian Jackson who has the most touches on this offense, and it's 36. Now, 16 of those came in the bowl game, and it's a limited sample size from what we've seen, but it is very impressive, and it gives you a lot of optimism about how good he can be. And we've heard, I know I said it last year, that the Lendell White comparisons, maybe because he's wearing the 2-1 and he's got the size, but he is the prototypical Big Ten downhill, run you over, run around you, not afraid to be physical as a true freshman size. But it's just, can he become a complete back now? Can he be a factor out of the backfield in the pass game? Can he be in there on third down and be better at pass protection? Can he be a great first and second down back, which I think he can. I think he can be an every down back. He's going to have to compete with Jordan and Sanders, but I'm excited for Brian Jackson's future. I'm just, you go back and watch the tape again against Texas A&M. Again, very small sample size, not a lot of touches, but you can see the potential and the flashes that he has with those touches. And the last guy is Amarian Peterson. He is still here. I am not writing him off. There's something about a guy who gets buried on a depth chart, who kind of becomes a little bit of a forgotten name. You get that chip on your shoulder. He's got experience in this offense more than the transfer guys. He knows how to be successful in this offense. He understands protection. He understands all those different things and schemes and all the run blocking. So I'm excited to see how he can develop and potentially be a competitor and get some more touches this year and have an expanded role.
Well, he can use that to his advantage. He's been in Lincoln Riley's offense the longest, so that could prove valuable. But it was interesting. First of all, just got to say, we here at the Victory Podcast have been fans of Brian Jackson early on.
Yeah.
If you remember early in the season, I was like, that guy looks like a linebacker.
Yep.
He is just built very just different in that sense. But I actually talked to him on Tuesday about the fact that he was a freshman coming in, trying to learn his way as a Trojan, and now he's giving tips to the new guys of, this is how you be a Trojan. He was like, it's a quick turnaround. And he also said that the next thing on his list is becoming that every down back, being a pass catcher. He said he tried to get as much information from Woody Marks as he could about being a pass catcher. But the thing I love the most about him, he was asked, do you feel like you had momentum coming off of the Vegas Bowl with how many carries you got, how much playing time you got? And he basically said, it doesn't matter the playing time that I get. Every day I'm coming in with a plan to get better. And if you're not, it's just not going to work.
100%.
He was like, it's not going to work. You got to work every day, every down as hard as you can, because you never know when your moment is going to be called.
Well, and when you play at USC, if you're not competing, they're always looking for your replacement. It's like the NFL.
Yep.
If you're not competing, they're bringing in guys to take your spot. That's why Wayman Jordan's here. That's why Eli Sanders here. And it's not a knock on you. It's just that you have to have competition at a place like USC. If you're not getting better, you're going to get left. So I love that. You can tell he went back and did some self-scout. He's self-aware. He knows what he needs to get better at. He understands he wants to be better as an every down back and out of the backfield. And I love that we're on the same page, because I hadn't even heard that quote by him, but he already recognizes that. And I fully expect him to develop well under Coach Riley in this offense.
Well, I want to move on to talk about the wide receivers. Before we do, just want to give a thanks to Audi. What you expect from an SUV is a range of sizes to fit your lifestyle. Expectations matter, but exceeding them matters more. The Audi family of SUVs, progress you can feel. So the wide receivers is an interesting room for this spring, because we talked about it post Vegas Bowl. Mayava's hand was forced a little bit as far as targets, just given the depth that USC had at wide receiver. And what we talked about so much is that they didn't really have a wide receiver 1, a wide receiver 2, because so many guys were getting targets. And so with Mekhi Lemon, Jacoby Lane, and Kyle Ford kind of as your 1, 2, 3 that game, they all ate in that regard.
They had to.
And it seems like this room is still headlined by Mekhi Lemon, Jacoby Lane. Obviously, Kyle Ford moved on, but do you continue that pattern? Do you continue to feed those two hot hands when it comes to this upcoming season? I'm wondering if that was something that they saw and want to replicate going forward. Yeah,
it's a lot easier to find out who your wide receiver 1 is when it's 2 guys, right? When it's Mekhi Lemon and Jacoby Lane, instead of finding out who your wide receiver 1 is when you have 5 guys, it could potentially be that.
Yeah.
It's a good and bad problem to have. And we talked about it all season long about, okay, it's a loaded wide receiver room. There's a ton of talent with all the guys that are in there, but it's tough to get everybody their touches, and it's tough for a guy to get into a rhythm and be consistent, right? And there were times when it was Jacoby Lane, felt like after the Wisconsin game, oh, he's the guy. He's the wide receiver 1.
Yeah.
And then his production went down a little bit because someone else stepped up. Then Deuce Robinson, Zachariah Branch had a couple good games. Kyle Ford, Kyron Hudson came out of nowhere and had some big-time games, right?
Yeah.
So it was just – and then Mekhi Lemon, in my opinion, later half of the season was very productive. So it was tough to find who that guy is going to be, and it's hard to build consistency and rhythm, especially as a quarterback when you're throwing the ball to 12, 13 different guys a game when you factor in the tight ends and the running backs and all of that. So I think it's going to be so important. I'll start with Jacoby Lane. I love his game. I do. I love the character he has as well. He's those type of guys you like to play with, right? He seems like a kid on the field. Nothing's too serious for him. No moment's too big for him. He's having fun. It's what he loves to do, and that is very infectious, right? When you're around a guy like that, it's someone that you want to be around, right? And in the film room, on the field, all of those things. But now as a player, he has tremendous size. He's got an amazing catch radius, and what I mean by that is, go back to the Maryland game, that one-hand catch he had in the end zone.
Yeah.
You put the ball up, and it might seem like, oh, that's an overthrow. That's an underthrow. That's too far for him. His wingspan, his ability to go out and grab the football out of the air is so impressive. As a quarterback, you love that. And then you pair that up, like I said, with his size and his physicality. I think he's going to be a star. If he can continue to be consistent, to improve, and he's going to get a lot more touches and have a bigger role this year with a smaller wide receiver room. But if he can continue to improve, I think he can be one of the best wide receivers, not only in the Big Ten, but the entire country. He really has that ability. The other guy that I'm very high on, and we've been high on since coming out of high school, is Mekhi Lemon. I think he is a star in the making. I really do. Was kind of a forgotten name early on last year. Didn't get a lot of targets, didn't get a lot of touches. And then right about the Maryland-Rutgers game, he starts taking over. And in my opinion, the last 7 games of the year, he was wide receiver 1. The most consistent, got the most catches. He was playing great football, did a really good job with the ball in his hand. You saw his confidence start to build when he went back there as a kick returner.
Yeah.
Got some touches that way. So that just helped him build that confidence. And I went back and watched his tape, and football nerd, I went back and watched not on all 22, which I wish I had, so I can get an end zone and a sideline. I did talk to them at Good Morning Football about that. So TBD, someone's helped me out a little bit with that.
Wow, exciting.
But I went back and watched Mekhi's film, and the more I watched him here, or watched him last year, I said, who does he remind me of? And I couldn't put a finger on it. You know who he reminds me of? And I'm not saying he's there yet, but their time at USC, Amon-Ra St. Brown. He does. There's a lot of very similar size, very similar skill set, right? They play bigger than they are.
Yeah.
Not afraid to go over the middle and take a hit. Amon-Ra does a great job of going and attacking the football out of the air. Strong hands, same thing with Mekhi. I think back to the Louisville game 2 years ago in the Holiday Bowl. That go route, he goes and takes it out of the air, similar to what Amon-Ra does in the NFL.
Yeah.
I feel like that is his ceiling, and that's a great ceiling to have.
Sure.
One of the best wide receivers, top 5 wide receiver in the NFL. But I really believe that's who he can become. And obviously he's going to make his name for himself, but there's a lot of similarities in their game. Now he's got a long way to develop to get there, but I'm excited this year. I think Jacoby and Mekhi are going to continue to build off of that bowl game, get a lot more targets, and become real dominant playmakers in this conference next year.
Okay, so we established Mekhi and Jacoby. Who are you looking at after those 2 guys?
That, Keely, is the biggest question.
Right, yeah.
Last year, we didn't have to worry about that because there was 5 or 6 guys that were in that room that could come out and compete and have a big day. Now there's really no one after that has established himself, right? So for me, the biggest question is when Jacoby Lane is having, I don't want to say an off game, but he's getting double covered, when Mekhi Lemon's getting double covered, when they're trying to cloud those guys on the outside, who's going to be that next guy to step up? A couple guys come to mind. The first one for me is Jay Fair, and I think he's going to continue to develop. Had some big-time plays last year, had a touchdown against Michigan, right? Stepped up in some of those big-time moments. Just didn't get a lot of targets, so got my eye on him. Another guy is Prince Strawn from Boise State. He's a transfer. And you may look at that and think, okay, we only had 30 catches, 300 yards, not a big productive guy. Remind you, his running back was Ashton Genty at Boise State. They ran the football at will. They didn't throw it all over the field. But he's 6'5", 215. That frame in this offense
And USC needs that height.
Absolutely. A red
length.
Zone target. He can be a guy that's a possession guy. And I know we threw a ton of fades last year, but he's a guy that could be effective with that and have some of those back shoulders and be a threat down in the red zone when we get towards the goal line. So I'm excited about him. Another guy that I'm very high on, and I talked a lot about him last spring, was Xavier Jordan. I think he has a tremendous ceiling. I think he has a lot of potential to be very good in this offense. Would love to see him get some reps in that slot spot, right? And get him involved maybe with some end around, some screens, let him get the football in his hands. Very shifty, very quick guy. And then Jaden Richardson's the last guy who transferred from Tufts a couple of years ago. We know how productive he is. The numbers he put up there got overshadowed last year and buried on the depth chart. So with more room for guys to make a name for themselves, to come out and compete, I think their role is going to get expanded, and I'm excited to see who steps up into that wide receiver 3 spot.
And I'm also just curious how much the addition of Chad Savage also influences what we see as far as targets. Jay Fair talked about how his coach is Chad Savage, so he's still trying to learn what he's like as a coach. But curious how that impacts everything.
Yeah, first of all, Chad Savage has been crushing it in recruiting.
Oh, yeah.
And disclaimer, we should have said this at the top. We see what's going on in recruiting. I promise you. We're just here at the Victory Podcast affiliated with USC Athletics, so we can't talk about a player until they are signed.
Yes.
But I promise you, we are fist pumping at all the fight on emojis that are posted on Twitter as well.
I retweeted one right before we started
there we go.
Podcast.
We're very excited about that. But yeah, I mean, Chad Savage, I think, is going to be great, too, to help those guys develop, give them a different point of view on some things, along with Dennis Simmons, right? And they can help them and feed off of each other. But speaking of Savage, too, and wasn't a huge talking point because we know who the guy's going to be, but tight ends. I'm excited for Lake McCree this year to develop. He's going to be back. Yeah. He'll be healthy. Walker Lyons is going to take that next step. Joey Olsen, a guy that I think can develop. And another guy that's kind of under the radar that I think can have a breakout spring and fall is Walter Matthews. I'm excited to see what he can do. He's got a great frame, great size on him. So it's a loaded tight end room, right? And now that we've got these guys back healthy, so it'll be fun to see how they develop under Chad Savage.
What's interesting is I feel like wide receiver and tight end is the only two position groups where I feel like I know who – kind of I have the depth chart in my mind.
Yeah.
You know, I have it a little bit. Everywhere else, I do not know.
It is wide open.
An excellent segue to our next position group. Didn't even plan that. Offensive line.
Here we go.
And the expectations for that group. in my notes, the only thing I had underneath the narrative that I wrote out was, who will even start where? Yeah. Which, interestingly enough, Coach Riley said that in his Tuesday press conference as well. He said it's one of those things that can play out a lot of different ways. He said, we know the guys who are going to handle left tackle and right guard. And he said after that, it's kind of a toss-up, to be honest. And
it's not just like it's, all right, here's the group. There is multiple variants of that group that you can put into play. So there are endless possibilities of what this will look like. But let's talk offensive line. Sit down. Grab some popcorn, get a cup of coffee. Let's talk a little bit here.
Folks.
Let's empty the notebook. I'm a quarterback. I the most important position or position group on the field, in my opinion, is offensive line. You only go as far as those guys will take you on offense. So let's talk a little bit about it. It's concerning a little bit because this is Coach Riley's 4th year here, and every year that we've gotten to this point in the offseason, there are more questions than answers at the offensive line. Who's it going to be? What's the continuity going to look like? Is there going to be consistency? Are they going to be able to build that in the spring and in the fall and be ready for season? It's not just here, though, right? With the transfer portal, it happens everywhere. But we'll start with the 2 guys we do know are going to be starters, like Coach Riley mentioned, Elijah Page, Lonnie Noah. Elijah Page, in my opinion, was the most improved player on this team a year ago. Think back to week 1, week 2, even week 3. We're sitting here, and we're talking about who's going to replace Elijah Page. He's not playing well. He's struggling. He's not ready for the Big Ten. And then you fast forward to the end of the year, and he's pretty much the MVP of the offense alongside Woody Marks. He did a phenomenal job of growing up quickly, and it was cool to see him in real time get better.
Yeah.
And same about Lonnie Noah, and I'll talk about him in a second, but it was cool seeing Elijah Page build that confidence. And you could see it, and maybe it's just me having an eye for the game. I'm not trying to say it in a weird way, but like you could see with his stance and his calls and him pointing at guys and him when the TV cop, you could see him eyeing the defensive end and looking at Abdul Carter ready to go. I mean, it was cool to see his confidence build up throughout the entire year. Another guy who's probably our best offensive lineman by the end of the year, and that's saying that with Jonah Monheim, Emmanuel Pregnon on that roster, and Elijah Page up front, was Lonnie Noah. He did so good on the interior of the offensive line in pass protection and run blocking, and I think that's where he really built his confidence, is when we started to stick to the run a little bit, the middle of the year, and he got to pull around and go downhill instead of having to kick step and block some of these 340-pounders up front on the inside of the defensive line. So it was great to see those guys. Now after that, here we go. It's a toss-up. So
can I interrupt you really quick?
Please,
I just want to give you credit because I feel like what you just said is a credit to your film study and how seriously you take this job and being an analyst, because I feel like, you know, at the start of the season, people were just so upset with the offensive line performance that they wrote it off completely.
100%.
And as the season progressed, you still watched every rep, every down, and you noticed, hey, they're actually getting better. And I feel like even in real time, you're getting hate for it, but you were like, no, they're actually getting better. And it ended up to actually prove true. So I just want to give you credit because I think it's easy to have the early season narrative and stick to it through the whole season, but you saw what you saw, and still, despite the hate, we're like, hey, I see what I see on tape.
And I want to say to the viewers' credit, or people that were frustrated with that, it's hard to overcome a first impression.
Sure.
Right? And when you're Elijah Page or Lonnie Noah, and Lonnie Noah was splitting reps at that point too. He wasn't even the for sure starter. Elijah Page was struggling and giving up a lot of missed assignments and missed blocks and not doing a good job in pass protection. And Miller Moss was getting hit off of his blind side a lot. It's easy to write those guys off, but you've got to give them time. They're young players. They're going to develop. They're playing their first year in the Big Ten. You're blocking Abdul Carter. You're blocking Mason Graham. You're blocking Kenneth Grant. Those guys at Michigan, at Penn State. It is tough, especially when you're a young guy. So I saw, you can see flashes of how good they can be, and I'm glad that they developed the way they did. And huge shout out, I know he's not here anymore, but Coach Henson too, for helping those guys build continuity and being very good players. Now, outside of that, let's start with right tackle. I like Tobias Raymond. I think he's going to be the one, quote unquote, going into spring. He deserves the right to start out at right tackle, to be with the starting group, to see what he can do. Not a ton of sample size from him last year, but again, I think he's a guy that can develop and be a solid starter on that right side. But there's Justin Tawanuu. And if you remember, go back and watch our episode after the Texas A&M game, or just go back and watch the game in general. When Elijah Page goes down with an injury, I'm looking at my notepad like, who's this Tawanuu kid? Figuring out how to pronounce his last name. And he comes in, and I think he only gave up one block or one hurry or one sack the entire game at left tackle against a very good SEC Texas A&M defensive front. He played phenomenal. And it was so cool to see, because he worked hard all season knowing that, okay, when I get my shot, I've got to make the most of it. And he did just that. Is he going to go to right tackle now and compete with Tobias Raymond? We'll see. The next guy that I'm keeping an eye on is a transfer player, DJ Wingfield from Purdue. He's interesting, though, and this is where it gets that musical chairs situation comes into play, because with Wingfield, he played 12 games last year, started 12 games at right guard for Purdue. The year before that, he started 13 games for New Mexico at right tackle. So he has experience at both. But if he comes over and he sticks with right guard, does that mean that Alani Noah moves to left guard? Or do you bring in Wingfield and put him at left guard and say, hey, no, Noah's our right guard? Or do you let him compete with Tobias Raymond at right tackle and then bring in someone else for the guard battle, right? It's just, there's so many possibilities, but he'll be a guy to keep an eye on. Either way, it's a good problem to have.
Yep.
DJ Wingfield is a phenomenal football player, played in the Big Ten, understand what it takes. Now, the last position, and the most important, and look, this is the 4th year that Coach Riley is going to be head coach at USC. This is also the 4th year in a row that there's going to be a new face at center to start off the season.
Yep.
That is not ideal, especially for a quarterback, because after quarterback, the most important position on offense, in my opinion, and I think a lot of guys on offense will agree with me, is center. Because with Coach Riley's offense, you're going to get up there, and they have the headset now, and you can communicate, in the helmet. But you get up there, call the play, and then we're on the ball. After that, unless you re-mic or you do any other identification stuff, the center is making all of the calls. He's making the call to the right guard, right tackle. He's telling the left guard, left tackle what to do. You are in charge of what we're doing up front. It's not just your job as center, your job and 4 other guys around you, right? Yep. So it is a very important position. There's 2 guys that I got my eye on. And the first one I want to say is the favorite because of experience is John Ray Reed. He's a transfer from Syracuse. Very good football player. Please go watch his film if you want to at Syracuse. Did a great job. Started 25 games the last 2 years. Very efficient in the run game. Very efficient in pass protections. He's graded very highly in both the last 2 years. Just a lot of fun to watch. He's a physical, mean, downhill, Big Ten type of center who can play other positions as well, right? You can move him around at guard. He has that versatility, but I think he's going to start out as the leader going into spring at center. But I'm hesitant to say that, because one of the other guys on the roster who I'm a big fan of, and we are here at the Victory Pod, is Killian O'Connor.
Yeah.
Right? He's been the guy that's been buried on the depth chart. Right? He wasn't a scholarship guy to start out. He earned a scholarship. He got his first start in the bowl game last year against Texas A&M. I was, holding my breath a little bit. I didn't know how it was going to go with a young quarterback, a new center. He played phenomenal. He was confident, making calls, didn't give up a lot of missed assignments, working downhill, working his A and B blocks with the guards, with the tackles, doing all those things, pulling around, getting in space. I was thoroughly impressed by Killian O'Connor. So I say yes, John Ray Reed, because of experience and how good of a player he is. In my opinion, is going to be the leader at center to start spring, but I'm not writing off Killian O'Connor. And also, that left guard position is pretty open. If Wingfield is going to play at right guard or Noah are going to compete at that spot and they're not both on the field at the same time, or if they move Noah or Wingfield to left guard, they're going to need depth guys there. So Killian O'Connor could not only just be a backup center, he could also compete for a guard spot as well. So it'll be interesting to watch. And then a couple other guys to keep an eye on. Micah Benuelos, who's healthy now, who I think is going to get a real shot at this thing this year to compete. Makai Sena, another guy who I think could be a good player. Then 2 of the freshman guys coming up, Alex Payne, Aaron Dunn. So, and you may be asking, why am I not mentioning all the freshman players right now? Offensive line, you're going to have about 10 guys rotating, so I'll mention them.
Yeah.
Some of these other positions, I'm just talking about the guys that I think that can be immediate starters right away. You're not going to have as much rotation as you are like offensive line, but I promise I'm not leaving guys out on purpose. Just until they kind of make a name for themselves a little bit or get some more reps in spring, that's when we'll kind of say, okay, these guys are making a name for themselves. But until then, this episode's really just focused on who's going to be the starters and potentially maybe the 2 deep after that.
Now, both you and Coach Riley identified how much, options there are. It's kind of like Tetris almost, trying to figure out who's best where. How do you thread the needle as to making sure that you try so many different variations to see what is the best starting 5, but not rotate so much that no one has chemistry heading into fall camp?
I think right now you go with the former. I think you go into spring ball right now and not worry about chemistry. I think you go out there and you empty the notebook. You throw every possible combination that you think might work. Coach Hansen, Coach Riley, let's sit down and come up with 5, 6, 7 different combinations with these guys. Let's try all of them. Let's not worry about consistency yet. We'll get that towards the end of spring, and then in the off season, we'll let the guys know really probably where they're going to fall going into fall camp. Then they can build that chemistry and PRPs and player ran practices going into fall camp. Then we have a month or so to get ready for season. But right now in spring, with this many guys and this many variations of units that you can use, throw them all out there. I am a firm believer in that. I know before we've talked about continuity and chemistry. That has to happen 100%. But when you have so many new faces and you really only have 2 guys that are solidified to be starters and you're going to have a new face at center, you've got to try it all or else you're not going to know. Right? And then you can, I truly believe Coach Riley has a great eye for those things. He'll start to see how it's going to shape pretty early on. I think it's only going to take a couple practices. for him to feel like, and it's not just reps as a unit. He's going to see one-on-one blocking. He's going to see 9-on-7. He's going to see different things they do. It's not just, 11-on-11 to where I make that decision. They're going to do other things. They're going to do individual drills. He'll check out their footwork, all these other things, how they work on the right side, how they work on the left side. But I think early on, Keely, you just try every combination you possibly can. And then after that, we'll figure out where the chips may fall and where guys are going to fit the best.
Alrighty, I want to keep to the trenches, but move to the other side of the ball. Defensive line. My point here for the narrative of this spring is more beef at defensive line. And before you even start, Cody, I can confirm that with the eye test. When I was entering practice at the end on Tuesday, what caught my eye was number 0, and I was like, Jamal Jarrett.
That's a big number 0, too.
That is a giant man. I can confirm that both Jamal Jarrett and Keyshawn Silver, the pictures, the videos do not give it justice. They are massive human beings.
That's good to know because I saw the video and I was thoroughly impressed. And that's important, though, because you may say, okay, it's the eye test. How do they play on the field? Sure. But being a former quarterback, walking on the field and knowing I have to go up against Jamal Jarrett and Keyshawn Silver and Kobe Pepe and Anthony Lucas, guys that look the part, the eye test, like you just mentioned, is a factor. Now, it's probably 10 to 20% of it. Now you got to go out there and perform.
Still a percentage.
But I promise you, there's an intimidation factor when it comes to playing a big, beefy defensive line. But I will say this. I was very impressed how we handled the defensive line situation this offseason, not only by the guys that we were able to retain, but also going out there and getting much-needed depth at that interior position, which I loved. And huge credit to Chad Bowden, to Lincoln Riley, to Sean Nua, to Danton Lynn, to Eric Henderson, because it's a group effort.
Yeah.
It's not just Lincoln Riley doing these at-home visits or talking to these guys. They want to know what position coaches they're playing for. They want to know what their defensive coordinator thinks. So all of them working together was phenomenal to see because there's a lot of guys in that room. We've talked about depth, but it would have been easy for some of these younger guys who played a lot last year to use their film and say, I'm going to go look elsewhere to where I can be a star instead of maybe being a depth guy. So huge credit to them, and that's a great thing to see as a fan, as a former player, because if you want to win in the Big Ten, you got to have a great defensive line. But let's start with the guys that are returning, right? Love that Kobe Pepe's back. I love that Anthony Lucas is going to be healthy. Again, Braylon Shelby, another guy who had some injury issues a year ago, who I still think has the potential to break out. And then the 3 young guys for me. And, last year with Cameron Fountain, with Devin Tompkins, with Jade Abasiri, did they get thrown in the fire a little bit too early? Yes, let's be honest. And there were times when we were frustrated with maybe their performance on the field because they were young guys and there were a lot of injuries with guys going out and Clifton and Gavin Meyer and guys that got hurt and they had to get thrown in the fire and they had to learn pretty quickly. And also you're playing in the Big Ten against Big Ten offensive linemen.
Yeah.
But as frustrating as that was a year ago, and probably for them being a little frustrated, it is going to be a huge payoff going into this season because it's different than quarterback. At quarterback, it's tough when you go out there when you're not quite ready, right? You make some bad decisions, you throw some interceptions, you lose your confidence. When you're a defensive lineman and you go out there maybe a little bit too early, you can start trying things, trying some swim moves, trying some bull rush, try things that work in practice that maybe don't work on game day, and then you learn by going out there and getting those repetitions. So I'm so excited for those guys to make that jump in year 2. I really believe they're going to be phenomenal this year, and all of that experience last year is going to lead to confidence. And they got the number changes already. We've got some I see everybody changing their number. We got some single digits up front on defensive line. There's a little different swagger to those guys. So I'm excited for the returners, and then looking at the 2 newcomers in the transfer portal. Jamal Jarrett is an absolute beast. And I mean, just looking at it on paper, 6'5", 350 pounds up there on he can play the shade, he can play the 3-tech. It is, how do you move him? How do you have to double team him basically every play if you want to run inside zone, if you want to run the ball down the middle of the field, which is great to see. I love his first step too. Very physical, younger guy, not a ton of reps as well. I think he can develop well, and that's important too because not start from scratch, but he can really understand how to play under Nua and Henderson and Coach Lynn. Exactly, and he's coachable. And he's a guy, because Coach Riley's not going to bring someone here that he doesn't think is going to make his team better both in the locker room and on the field. So I'm excited to see what he can do. And then Keyshawn Silver is a dog. He is. If you watch his tape at Kentucky, he's a junior, a little bit of an older guy. Great first step, very physical, uses his hands well, not afraid to play laterally and move sideline to sideline. He can track down the run game when they go outside zone. It's just, he is a very good football player, and he performed at this level in the SEC. And I'm not saying, I'm not getting into the Big Ten, the SEC. Hopefully Sua doesn't hear this episode, but there are some big players in the SEC up front on the offense and defensive line, and he dominated the way he did at Kentucky on a team that struggled a little bit. So I'm excited that we have him here. And then one of the freshmen I want to talk about, and I'm sure everyone knows about, is Thanos, is Jakeem Stewart. And we did a little breakdown episode. We didn't get to do because my wife ended up going into labor, but I watched his film and did a breakdown on him. And again, another guy that is ahead of his time. He's a young player. He has not even grown into his body yet, and he was doing scary things at the high school level. I couldn't imagine going to math class as a quarterback and then realizing later that day I've got to go play Thanos at defensive end. I would probably tap out and tell my coach I'm hurt.
Goodness.
Just the way he comes off the edge, he can play inside, he can play outside. His spin move, his bull rush, his toolbox is endless at a young age. So it's so impressive to see what he's doing right now. I think the sky's the limit for him here at USC. The other thing is just don't rush it. Kind of like Hassan Longstreet. There's a lot of depth now on this defensive line. If he's not ready, you don't have to force him to be out there. Maybe give him some packages. And obviously Coach Lynn knows how to develop guys, but give him some of those funky looks, some funky packages where he can come in a 2-point stance and pin his ears back, not have a lot of responsibilities and get after the quarterback and then develop from there. But take a bow to this coaching staff, to Chad Bowden, to everyone involved. This defensive line is really becoming something to be proud of and a unit that can compete in the Big Ten.
Okay, 2 thoughts off of what you just said. First off, Cody is big time now when he's able to just say laterally like it's no problem and roll on. I was just
you catch that?
I was in awe.
Yeah.
I was so impressed by that. So.
Well, okay, the joke behind that is I have struggled very badly over the last, let's say 3 years now since we've been doing the show, saying laterally. And I could not pronounce it. I'd always forget the R. I'd say laterally. So I reverted to sideline to sideline. That's what I would say, and just avoiding that. And there were times I would try it and I would just throw it out of nowhere and we would just laugh because I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
So we'd retake and I'd say sideline, sideline. But now, big time on live television, doing all that. I'm practicing at home in the mirror.
Wow.
A little bit more literate. I'm expanding my toolbox of words is getting a little bit bigger. I'm saying laterally the right way.
It's a big word for
I'm
Elmo.
learning. So yeah, no kidding. But I appreciate you noticing. Thank you. I've been working hard on that word.
Of course. So proud of you.
At 31 years old.
Okay, well, my second thought is actually football related. It's about Jakeem Stewart, and basically what you just laid out is what Riley said. His physical attributes pass the mark as far as playing at the college football level, but it's about getting comfortable in Lynn's scheme, getting comfortable with playing against college football players at this point. And I know that's kind of been, as you mentioned, he was dominating at the high school level, so it's going to be a transition to not be the biggest guy on the field. So he said the limit is how quickly can he learn everything, and he did give him credit. He said he's in the facility darn near all day. So apparently he's a football nerd like you, Cody. So that's great to hear.
You've got to be if you want to be successful. I mean, and you go from high school to college is a big jump. Don't get me wrong. Now, college NFL is the biggest jump. It is a different game, but high school, you're the star on every single game you play, every practice, every single rep, all of that. You get to college, everyone's a star, right? You're around a bunch of Jakeem Stewarts. Now, there's your outliers, and there's guys that are very good, but everyone is around that level. And the other thing about that is the playbook. In high school, your playbook goes from this. In college, it gets to about this, even probably bigger. And you've got to know different packages. You've got to know different looks. If you see 3-by-1, like 3 receivers, 1 receiver on the backside, that'll change the front. Then if they motion and go 2-by-2, that changes the front. If they go 12 personnel, which is 1 running back, 2 tight ends, that'll change the front. Or if they go 21, which is 2 running backs, 1 tight end. There's just 11 personnel, 1 running back, 1 tight end, 3 receivers. There's just so many different things you can do. And I know I'm going football nerd on you, but that's how difficult it is. And I just said that in 10 seconds. Multiply that by 100, and now you've got to perform at the highest level, right, in the Big Ten. And it happens so fast, and you don't have time to think. And then the picture changes post-snap. So it's very impressive what he's been able to do at the high school level. I really believe it's going to translate well to the college, level. But I love that Coach Riley said he's in the film room. He's working hard because that's what's going to help him take that next step is in between the years and being able to be there mentally and understand the scheme.
Okay, the second to last thing I'm looking for this spring is how will USC's secondary shape up? I feel like so many guys left that I'm curious who fills out those open spots. Yeah,
it's a position group that we've talked about the last couple of years, finding that lockdown corner, finding some depth there, finding guys that can cover, play man-to-man, allow our defensive line to get after the quarterback, allow Lynn to do all these different looks that he wants to do up front. And then we started to see it a year ago, and then we basically lose the whole unit. So it's a little frustrating, a little concerning going into this offseason, but you have Jalen Smith, who played great last year, he's gone. Jacoby Covington, who came on strong towards the end of the year, he's gone. Greedy Vance Jr., who was phenomenal in that nickel spot a year ago, he's gone. And then you have the third guy behind Covington and Smith, who played the most amount of snaps, John Humphrey, he's gone as well. So it is a complete reset at that secondary spot, or specifically at corner spot right now. Now, one guy that we do have coming back that I'm excited, I think, can take that next step is DeCarlos Nicholson. Right, a big physical corner. He fits well in Danton Lynn's scheme. He got buried a little bit on the depth chart, so I expect him to play a little bit better this year. A young guy that I am very high on is Marcellus Williams. For those of you who don't know, the brother of Max Williams, who was here a couple years ago. He played great in the spring game last year, really in spring ball and fall camp. Just wasn't quite ready to take over during season. Wasn't there developmental-wise. Now he's going to get there, in my opinion, this year. He's going to have to. get thrown into the fire a little bit because of the lack of depth at this position. Does he play nickel? Does he play outside corner? Is he going to be versatile like Jalen Smith? Can he play multiple different spots? That's still yet to be seen, but I'm excited about his future. And then the next guy that I have always been high on, I think he's a fantastic football player, is Prophet Brown. He's been here for a while, and if you remember from last year, just not the most physical guy in the world, not the biggest, fastest, strongest guy in the world, but I love the way he plays the game. I love his mindset. He's going to get beat one play, but then he's going to win the next 3 reps, right? And he's
also great tackler.
Great tackler, not afraid to be physical, not the biggest guy, but there's times last year against, I remember the Rutgers game at home where he gave up a big post route, I think for a touchdown, and then made 3 big plays back to back to back after that. And that tells me a lot about someone's mental side of the game, about their confidence, to where I'm not going to get rattled. Because as a DB playing in the Big Ten, whether you're playing Rutgers or you're playing Michigan or Penn State or Ohio State, you're going to give up a big play. It's going to happen. The offense is going to win. It's how well you bounce back.
Yeah.
How can you continue to keep that confidence and perform? Prophet Brown is that guy. Another guy. Is he going to play nickel? Is he going to play outside? He has some experience at both, so we'll see. But the guy I'm most excited about is transfer DJ Harvey from San Jose State. Kid is a stud. He really is. Go watch his tape. Great feet, great eye discipline, right? Doesn't get caught looking in the backfield and let the DB go by him. Very good with his hands, good in press, good in off coverage. I am very high on this kid. I think he's going to be a plug-and-play type of starter on this team. Now, is it opposite of DeCarlos? Is it opposite of Marcellus? Prophet, who's going to be the other guy on the other side of him? But I'm so excited. Had 6 pass breakups, 4 interceptions last year. Very good when coming downhill and tackling. You have to tackle if you want to play in Denton Lynn's scheme. So I'm excited to see what he can do. He's also the godbrother of Kamari Ramsey. So little fun fact there.
I did not know that.
A lot of people thought.
I did know that, actually. Just kidding.
A lot of people thought maybe that was the reason that Kamari came back. So shout out DJ Harvey if that's the truth.
Yeah, true.
But he's a guy, again, all jokes aside, he is going to be, in my opinion, a phenomenal football player on Denton Lynn's scheme. And can he be that lockdown corner that USC needs so they can get after the quarterback and play some more man-to-man?
The reason I corrected myself is because DJ Harvey, I think, was the first commit to have the commitment video in this exact studio.
Did he?
Yeah.
He committed early, right? It was back in December or something.
Yeah. And that's what I remembered, because I remember being like, oh, that's podcast. I was just like, oh, this is interesting. It felt like breaking the fourth wall a little bit. Like, we talk about these people and here they are committing in this room. I don't know. It was just very crazy for me.
Well, now we just got to get them to come down and be on the show.
True.
And talk about their commitment and talk about what they're going to do here.
Yeah, just like it's like a one-stop shop.
Full
just
circle.
Commit, take the photo, come on the show.
There we go.
Boom.
Well,
there we
speaking
go.
of DJ Harvey and Kamari Ramsey, that's where I'm going to go next too. Is safeties before we move on to the next position group.
Well done.
I want to talk about Kamari Ramsey though for a second, because not only did he come from the wrong school, he wore the wrong colors. For those of you who don't know, Kamari Ramsey was at UCLA before coming to USC, but made some bad decisions early on in his college football career. But then he righted the ship and came over here to USC. But no, he had every right to go to the NFL this offseason. I truly believe that. At the very least, he was going to be a day 2 pick, which is 2nd or 3rd round. He was going to make an NFL team very happy. I think he could have competed to be a starter in the NFL as a rookie. No one would have blinked an eye. No one would have blamed him. No one would have gave him a hard time if he went to the NFL. But he didn't. And the reason I think he came back is because he believes in USC. He believes in Coach Riley. He believes in the vision that Denton Lynn has for this football team, and he wants to be a part of that. Because you can argue, oh, well, it's NIL. He can make money here. You don't know exactly what's going to happen, right? Injuries happen. Things happen. There's risk involved. Yes, it's easier to come back because you can make money in college instead of going to the NFL. But I promise you, every kid that grew up, even nowadays, even when you're in high school, didn't grow up thinking, I hope I make money in the NFL, or I hope I make NIL money in college. No, you dreamed of playing on Sundays in the NFL. That's the ultimate dream.
Yeah.
And he didn't do that. He put that on hold to stay here for another year at USC, and no one would have blamed him if he left. I wouldn't have either. I would have gave him a handshake, said thanks for everything, fight on, right? 4s down, and then have fun in the NFL. But no, I think that speaks volumes of the belief that Kamari Ramsey has in this football team and this coaching staff. So that's great to see. Now, the question for me is who plays alongside him, right? There's going to be some shoes to fill there. Is it Bishop Fitzgerald, who's a transfer from NC State and good football player? Great instincts back there at that safety position. Had 3 interceptions, 8 pass breakups, 55 tackles, 7 tackles for loss as a safety, which is very impressive, meaning that he plays tight to the box. Denton Lynn's scheme.
Yeah.
You're going to blitz a lot as a safety. You're going to come down and play off the edge. He can fit another plug-and-play guy, in my opinion, that can come in and make an impact right away. But then another young guy that I'm excited about is Christian Pierce. We've heard his name kind of like a roller coaster over the year. Very high as a freshman.
Yeah.
Didn't play a ton as a sophomore or last year, kind of up and down, got a couple shots here and there, but wasn't really a standout guy. This is your shot now, Christian. This is your chance to come out, to compete, to say, hey, I can play alongside Kamari. Or if it's Bishop Fitzgerald, Kamari, and Christian rotating in a 3-way kind of situation. Or there were times last year where we would have 3 safeties on the field with Kamari and Bryson Shong and a Keely Arnold. So I think Christian Pierce has a huge opportunity ahead of him, but it's going to be interesting to see. Obviously, Kamari is set at that safety spot. It's just who's going to play opposite of him this year.
We need like an official log of Victory Pod like people or like, you know, Christian Pierce was one of those guys where I believe I watched him his freshman year in practice and I was just
2 years ago, we both.
This guy can hit.
And like, then he played in the spring game and had a pick or had like a cover 2 pick. And I was like, Keely, you are right. Like that's great eye.
Well,
the
he
scout. I'm like, this kid's
me of, like,
impressive.
A shorter Taylor Mays in the sense that like he just will kill you and doesn't care about it.
And Taylor, speaking of that though, Taylor was very high on him. Last year, Sue and I would always talk to T. Mays before the games and kind of pick his brain a little bit. He was like, Christian Pierce is impressive. He's just got to put it all together. I love this kid. I'm very high on him. Physical, and that's the type of player that Taylor Mays likes.
Of course.
So back up your point. He said T. Mays was very high on him. And those who don't know, I wish he was still here, but he's at Washington. I wish him nothing but the best. But I know we just flashed back a little bit. But yeah, he has a real opportunity this year now to where he's not buried on the depth chart to be a starter alongside Kamari Ramsey. Now he's got a tall task at hand because Bishop Fitzgerald is a very good safety, but that's what you want here at USC. You want competition. It brings the best out of each other. So keep a close eye on Christian Pierce this spring.
Well, and to add to your point, he was actually highlighted by Riley yesterday when asked about leaders emerging in this offseason. He said Christian Pierce has a chance to grow into a really good leader. He's got some alpha-like qualities.
Good.
He was our most impactful player on special teams last year and had a really great offseason. I think he's primed to take a major role in the secondary. So he was glad to hear that because obviously, as we just mentioned, we're very high on Christian Pierce, but it's also that development, getting comfortable in your role in college football and being that leader. And I feel like based on what we've heard from Coach Riley, it seems like he's matching that play on the field to, you know, off the field and how he approaches it. So I think that's a really good sign.
And that's tough to do when you don't have a lot of experience. It's tough when you're not a playmaker, when you're not a going out there and making plays on Saturday, a solidified starter to step into a leadership role. Right, but he's assumed that, and he said, hey, I'm going to be a guy this year I can compete, and I'm also going to be a leader for this football team. So that's great to see.
Now, I just want to pull back the curtain a little bit. When I made the narratives for spring camp, it was just me like sitting down at my computer and being like, what am I thinking about when it comes to this spring? And it kind of ended up like filtering out into position group by position group, which was not actually my goal.
You kind of have to, though.
Yeah.
You can't talk about narratives with how open this roster is, Keely. It's so tough.
It's the biggest umbrella of this offseason. It's the fact that it's so just wide open at every position, like you said. And so in that regard, you know, I had asked biggest concern. And so that actually takes us to our final position group. In your opinion, Cody, that is the linebacker group.
100%. Now I'll start with the positive. EG is back. Eric Gentry, the unicorn himself. He was, in my opinion, on pace last year to be an All-American really early on in the year before that Michigan game when he got hurt. And I know it was a small sample size, but he was playing so well in Danton Lynn's scheme and flying around, and he's the perfect fit. You talk about how do you be successful in Lynn's scheme? You be versatile. Yeah. That is Eric Gentry. He can play off the ball. He can play on the ball. He can play Mike. He can play Sam. He can move back and play in coverage, drop in cover 2, and play that Mike kind of Tampa 2 zone dropper. He can do it all. That's why he was so successful last year. And then he came back for the bowl game, which I'll put on record I was a little hesitant for.
You were.
Because I was worried about him coming back, getting hurt. But he played well, got his feet wet again, and got back out there. So very excited to see his development. His second year in Lynn's scheme, I think he's going to be phenomenal. Now, after that is where it gets a little concerning. But the guy that takes away a little of that concern is Desmond Stevens, who was a true freshman last year, played a good amount, had some packages for him in some key moments. I remember UCLA, the 4th down play, they had him out there. There was a couple of times in the Penn State game, had the interception. Yeah. Just showed flashes of how good he can be. He is a perfect Big Ten linebacker, 6'3", 230 pounds, athletic, can move laterally, right? Not just sideline to sideline, but laterally. But he is a phenomenal football player. He, in my opinion, I've already red dotted him this year for a guy that I think is going to be a breakout star on defense. I really do. I think he has all the intangibles, has the potential to be a star on this defense, and I truly believe that. I love his physicality, too, when coming downhill. But after Desmond Stevens and Eric Gentry, there's really not a lot of depth, and that's why I say this is my biggest concern. Thankfully, Anthony Beavers Jr. moved from safety to linebacker, but he's still a smaller body type, right? I think he's 6'1", 215 pounds, has been a safety his whole life, which is what he's used to, and that size is good for that. But then you put him in the box as a linebacker in the Big Ten, how's that going to translate? Is he going to be able to come in there and stop the run? Is he going to be able to control gap integrity and come down in the A gap with a center or a guard working up to him and be physical and not getting moved out of the way? Now, thankfully, we have Coach Wiley, who's great in the weight room and can put some size and all of that. And he's going to have some time to get some reps this spring and fall. But really after that, there's no one else, in my opinion, that has a lot of experience that can come in and be a for sure 2 deep or 3 deep guy. Yeah. Right? Elijah Newby just moved the defensive end, so you lose him at the linebacker spot. You have some young guys that can potentially step up. But I think this offseason, and we didn't address it in the summer to spring or from the winter to the spring, but when you have that window in the transfer portal from spring to fall, once guys after spring ball finishes up, we need to go out. I'm not saying we got to go get a 5-star, best linebacker you can find ever, all of that. We just got to add some guys in there with experience that can have some, that add some depth to that room, so that if, knock on wood, something happens to EG or something happens to Desmond, or any of those guys get hurt, we're not relying on some true freshmen that have to step up and play who aren't ready. Yeah. Right? So I would love for us to go out and address some depth issues with the transfer portal this offseason at the linebacker spot. But again, great to have Eric Gentry back. So excited for Desmond Stevens. I'm still yet to be seen on how that transition is going to be for Anthony Beavers Jr. But again, we've got to add some depth to that position group.
Also, speaking of Anthony Beavers, I just want to give a shout out to our former co-host, Dion Bailey. I don't know if you saw on Twitter, he basically was like, hey, Beavers, please hit me up. Like, I was a tweener guy too. Like, I want to give you as much advice as possible. And I think it's so cool when, the Trojan families, it's just cool to see alums kind of reach out and try and mentor the younger generation.
I'll tell you, that Bailey household, man, they are USC through and through.
Oh, I know.
His wife, Autumn, played soccer here. Dion's a diehard SC football guy. And it's just, but if I'm Anthony Beavers, that is a perfect guy to reach out to, right? He reminds me a little bit of a Dion Bailey, of a Sua Cravens type. Now, he's not that caliber yet. He's got to develop to be mentioned in the same category as those guys. But if Dion Bailey hits me up and asks for or tells me reach out for some help, I am 5 minutes after that, 5 seconds after that.
Yeah.
What's your number? Send in a direct message. Hey, tell me how to get in touch. Let's talk film. Let's talk ball. Help me out. So that's a great asset to have, and that's awesome that former players who aren't even coaching are reaching out to some of these guys to help out.
For sure. Alrighty, Cody, I want to head over into questions. Before we do, just want to give a thanks to Audi. Focus matters. Listen closely. The Audi Q8 e-tron's cabin is serenely quiet, so you can focus on other things like having tomorrow's technology today. The new fully electric Audi Q8 e-tron, how we get there matters. And at Rouse, everyone wins when it comes to saving big, because when you order online through the Rouse app, you get the same great prices, deals, and rewards on pickup or delivery that you do in store. So no matter how you shop, you always save big at Rouse. Rouse, fresh for everyone. Fight on. Laterally, fight on. Two ad reads.
Real quick,
all the
though,
way through.
Disclaimer, again, one more time, because I know the comments might say it, but this isn't, like Keely mentioned, we're not going every single player in that position group. If you may think, okay, linebacker or safety, or why don't you mention this guy? There's some freshmen that can make a name for themselves, but this was more so people that we thought were going to be starters or compete for a starting spot, or could be rotational guys and have made a name for themselves already, or have some experience here, or big name transfer guys. Now, it's not to discredit and not say that there's going to be some storylines in spring where this true freshman steps up or this younger guy steps up. I 100% believe that can happen. I love the recruiting classes that we're putting together, specifically this year and obviously in years to come. But this episode is more tailored to guys that we think are going to be starters going into spring. And then when other storylines pick up or younger guys make a name for themselves, obviously we'll give them credit.
It's a high-level overview in that sense.
Yeah, I mean, just what to look for, right? We've done episodes before where we go, this guy, and it loses kind of the value of, well, we're not talking position battles anymore. We're basically just reading the roster, which you can go do online. I'm talking more so of what's the 1-2 at wide receiver going to look like, and then who's that third guy realistically that can compete starting day one of spring or starting the first week. And then, like I said, if other guys start to emerge, which I'm sure they will, we'll be sure to give them credit. I promise you that.
Now, we got a question from Caleb, who said, how does Maava go about improving his decision-making process going forward?
It's honestly kind of a simple answer. It's just repetition, right? By playing in this scheme, getting. I know you're not playing in a game, but being the starter during spring and figuring out what works and what doesn't. Can I make this throw at practice? Can I make this throw with this coverage? Can I do these things? Trying all that and trial and error over and over to where when you get to the games, it becomes easy, right? I've seen this look on defense with this concept. I know I can force this throw in there, or I know, hey, let me move on and go down to a check down. Let me not force this one. We'll come back to it when we get the look that we like, right? When you run kind of those deep post routes in the middle of the field, you want to cover 4 shell. Well, if they go 1 high, you can't run a post with the safety in the middle of the field. You can't force that throw. Just know, okay, the defense won. That's a gotcha call. If we don't check at the line, I know I'm going to keep my eyes there, check it down, move on, and then we're going to come back, and if we get cover 4, then I take that shot. Don't force those throws in practice, because the way you practice becomes your habits on game day, right? So he can learn by, like I said, taking some risk, but then reeling it back when you figure, okay, this works, this doesn't. But at the end of the day, it's just repetitions over and over and over, watching, like I said, guys that played in this offense before. the Baker Mayfields, Kyler Murray, Jalen Hurts, Caleb Williams, learning what they did well, and then picking Coach Riley's brain, getting on timing with all your wide receivers as well, and then just don't be afraid to take off and run. Don't be afraid to check the ball down. Don't be afraid to throw it away. I know it's a lot there, but that's what you have to do as a quarterback. You've got to process in real time, and you learn all that at practice and then let it transition to game day.
As someone who's played the position at every level, when you're watching a guy, can you tell the difference between someone who is, not confident in their decisions versus they haven't done the film work?
Yeah.
Can you see the difference?
Yes, you can. And I'll say this is important too, and I probably should have said this at the top talking about Jaden, but there's a fine line between being smart with the football and then being trigger shy and being scared to make mistakes and then starting worrying about throwing interceptions. Because when I know a guy has lost his confidence is when he stops throwing on time, when he stops throwing in rhythm, when he hesitates, when he double clutches, when he's like, I'm not sure, and doesn't let it rip. That's when you start to handcuff a quarterback, right? And Coach Riley, again, like I said, very good at developing quarterbacks. And he mentioned this on Trojans Live the other day, too, about finding that fine line of not taking away his big play ability, but also reeling it in so you protect the team. And you don't have a lot of turnovers. But, yes, when I see a guy get out there and it's kind of like the Sam Darnold effect, right?
Yeah.
Sam is the perfect example, and I love Sam. I'm so excited for him, too. Huge shout-out to Sam going to Seattle. Very well-deserved. Big contract. I can't wait to see what he does. But Darnold was a perfect example of no. Yes, right? Don't throw it away. Caleb, too.
Yeah.
Throw it away. You've got to find that fine line. But if you can protect the football and still have those big plays, that's when you're going to be successful. But when you start getting there and you're not throwing on time and it's a 5-step out, or I'm doing 5 in rhythm, I'm throwing a 10-yard out, and you're late because you're like, I don't want to throw a pick. Is this the right read? That's when the confidence starts to go away. And when you watch film and you watch a quarterback hesitate to throw and then getting too quickly to the check down or too quickly of throwing it away, that's also another concern. So there's a very fine line. It's tough. Quarterback, in my opinion, is one of the toughest positions in any sport in the world. It's so difficult, not only the physical side of it, but the mental side. And there's a fine line between confidence and being reckless, right? So you've got to flirt with that. But then if you start regressing and you're like, I don't want to make this throw, I'm hesitant, you're late, and that's a pick six. And then you're on the other side of that. So It's tough. That's a great question. It's going to come down to him just getting more reps and showing that confidence, but don't lose that big playability that we know he has.
Jonathan said, what is the most important thing for a quarterback in spring football?
I would say rapport, chemistry with not only the guys up front, right, but your receivers, your running backs, all of those guys as a quarterback. You've got to get on the same page with John Ray Reed, with Killian O'Connor. And it's not just calling a play, but it's also what does your cadence sound like, right? Let DJ Wingfield, if he comes in at guard or tackle, get comfortable with your cadence, how you lead, how you call a play. And then obviously the wide receivers, right? Jaden Maiava has a good chemistry with Mekhi Lemon, with Jacoby Lane. They've worked a lot together, whether it's when he was a starter with scout team or throwing routes after practice. But now you've got to build that with Jay Fair, Xavier Jordan, Prince Strawn. And then those guys got to build it with Hassan Longstreet and Sam Heward. Right, so that's very important. And also the running backs, too. You got to understand, those guys are back there. There's some new faces with Wayman Jordan, with Eli Sanders. They don't really know the offense. You can help them out, give them some little tidbits here and there, like, hey, you're protecting this guy. I did it with Buck. I did it with some of the running backs we had back there. When we had Ronald Jones back there, remember when he came in, he knew his stuff. Not saying they don't, but help him out. Hey, we're going 4 down to the mic. Hey, you got the Sam to the safety. Just give them little things like that makes them feel confident they can play fast. And then obviously work on some swing routes, some screens, some of those angle routes, some wheels, just different things you'll do. But yeah, I'll say as a quarterback, building that confidence, the things for yourself, but then more importantly, how you relate and how you build that chemistry with the guys around you.
Frankie said, what would it take for Longstreet to separate himself in the quarterback competition?
I think it would take a lot. Like I said, I think he would have to show 2 things. One is that he's ready to compete, right? That he can go out there and that he'll be ready on Saturdays realistically, and that it's not too early, and that he can develop and pick up the offense very quickly. Now, he's had a little bit of time to do that, so I think he's going to be further ahead than people think in spring. But how far ahead is that? Is that ready to go out on Saturday and play a game? Is it ready to go compete in the Big Ten? Is it ready to overtake Jaden Maiava, who now has 4 starts and a full year under his belt being in Lincoln Riley's system? So I think that's a big jump for him. And then the other thing is if he can go out there and compete with Jaden, like the head-to-head, the routes on air, the arm talent, the throwing, who's going to throw a better go ball, who's throwing better timing, all those things play a factor as well. And they kind of work hand in hand, but it's going to be it's a tall task for him to go out there and realistically be the starter. But watching his tape, there's a lot of things to love, and I have no doubt that he's going to be a star here at USC. It's just how quickly can he get to that point. And again, like I said, don't rush it. If he's not ready, Don't hurt his development by putting him in there too early instead of allowing him to take time to get those mental reps, to watch Jaden, and then whether it's this year or next year, whenever that time is, he's fully ready to go and has all the confidence he needs.
No, that makes sense. Okay, Cameron asked a question that will probably be another episode if we let you go free, Cody. So I'm going to add some parameters. He wanted to know, who are Cody's red dot guys on USC's team to watch during spring camp? I'm going to give you opportunity for 5.
Okay. We could do a full episode we'll just do a full breakdown of the entire team. But so for those who don't know, red dot player is, we talk about this on our preview episodes, is when you get in the film room and the coach puts the red laser pointer on a player and says, if we don't stop this guy, it is going to be a long Saturday. He is going to disrupt our game plan. Think Aaron Donald. Think TJ Watt, right? Think guys like of that caliber. Think Myles Garrett, guys up front. If we don't handle this guy, it is going to be a nightmare, and we're not going to be able to run what we want to run. On offense, if you don't stop Caleb Williams, and he runs all over the field and makes those big plays. So those are the type of red dot guys we're talking. For this, I'm going to put more of a highlight instead of a red dot player, because basically I'd just be talking about our best returners or our best starters. I'm going to say the 5 guys that I can't wait to watch in spring that I think are the biggest storylines or most interesting for me because they could have a big impact this year. The first one for me is Jaden Maiava. I think is obvious. The quarterback, how's he going to develop?
Yeah.
The next one I'm going with is Wayman Jordan. I don't know if it's because I liked him so much at the interview the other day on Trojans Live. I love his game film. He's going to have a chip on his shoulder. People argue, oh, well, the JUCO Hutchinson community college kid, it's not going to translate well to Big Ten Division I football. I think it will. He has very impressive tape. So those are my first 2. The next guy I'm going to go with is Desmond Stevens. Again, I think he's going to be my breakout player on defense. If you had to ask me right now who's going to be a breakout star next year on the defensive side of the ball, I would go Desmond Stevens. The next one for me is Bishop Fitzgerald. I know he's an experienced guy, so he's not really a question mark, but he's a new face. So I'm curious to see what he's going to do. And then the last one for me is a toss-up at corner. But I spoke so highly already about DJ Harvey, and you know what he can do. I'm going Marcellus Williams. Okay, I think just because of how good he was freshman year in spring ball and fall camp, now he's going to have that confidence going into this year. He's going to get a real shot at this thing. Those are 5 guys to me that I think can make a huge impact, and I can't wait to see what they do throughout spring.
You handled that very well.
Yeah, ask me that again, though, in a couple weeks. We'll see. I'm excited for some more storylines to emerge. Actually, and maybe change my pick here and there, or talk about the top 5 storylines throughout the spring. Maybe we'll do a little segment on that.
That's cool. Yeah, no. Definitely bring that up again, Cameron, if you can. Mauricio said, is it a hot take that I fully think USC can make the playoffs? ASU did it last year. Why can't USC?
It's a hot take. I wouldn't say extremely hot. It's a warm take. It is. Okay. I don't. It's possible, not probable, is the way I'll say it. And I say that because the ASU comparison, I firmly believe the Big Ten is extremely harder than the Big 12. No knock on the Big 12. It's just, it is a gauntlet in the Big Ten. It is tough to continuously win each week, and you already know there's going to be multiple teams in the Big Ten. So that helps a little bit, but it's tough because there's always 4 or 5 teams at the top that are very good. Can we make that drastic of a jump this year? I'm not saying no, but I think it's a big mountain to climb. So making the playoffs, I don't know. I'm also the former player side, so I don't want to look ahead. You know, I know I'm on the media side of things now, but it's tough for me to say, let's talk about playoffs in March. But yeah, I mean, it's a hot take. Again, it's possible. I don't think it's the most probable thing, but I'm not saying it's not going to happen. Let's just handle spring ball first, then fall camp, and worry about that week 1. But yeah, I mean, the other thing too that I think is getting caught up in all of this is, yes, I love the transfer players here, the guys that are coming in. Yes, I love the guys on the roster, but don't mix up the recruiting and who's here right now and the timeline between that. Yes, there's some great players on this roster. No knock on those guys. But the guys that we're recruiting as well, it shows you that USC football is absolutely ascending. It's trending in the right direction, but you still got to go out there and win games. You still got to go out there and compete against other teams that are trending in the right direction as well. It is tough to win in the Big Ten. That is a true thing. Right now, are we building a great foundation for years to come? Are there great people in place at this university that can help us get to the playoffs and win national championships? 100%. It just doesn't happen overnight, right? So it'll be tough, but I don't want to write it off. And like you said, ASU was voted dead last in the preseason rankings for the Big 12. They ended up winning the Big 12 and going to the playoffs and almost beat Texas to go to the next round. So, I mean, it's not impossible. It's just a lot tougher, in my opinion, to win in the Big 10 than it is to win in the Big 12.
It's an interesting position for USC to be in right now because obviously the fans are excited about the momentum, the 2026 recruiting
100%.
class. But it still has to build. It's not the immediate gratification that, everyone wants to see. It's still a process to build to where they want to go. So I think it's going to be something we're going to talk about this upcoming season, the expectations versus reality when there's so much momentum this offseason, but it might not translate immediately. And how do you rectify that, reconcile that? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean that's why I say, like, it's possible, not probable. Let's talk about the first week. That's just the old player in me of, I don't want to look too far ahead. I'm not even practicing this week, but I'm like, let's focus on Thursday's practice, and then we'll get there when we get there.
You to put your hands on your shoulder
that's
pads.
how I feel when I get those questions. But yeah, I mean, and no one loves USC football more than I do. I mean that, and I don't want to sound negative, like, oh, we can't get to the playoffs. I'm just saying, like Keely mentioned, it's gonna take time, and we got spoiled a little bit in Coach Riley's first year with Caleb Williams, who's a generational player. With some of the transfer guys we got, we played well. It's also the Pac-12, right? The Big Ten's a little bit different, but now you just have to understand that it's going to take time, and we are 1,000% going in the right direction. I wish we could talk recruiting. I am so excited about the things that are happening. Huge shout out to House of Victory.
Yeah,
they are doing a phenomenal job by being aggressive in the NIL. That is the NIL collective for USC. It's been awesome to see what's happening around USC football. They're putting up the new facility while you're walking in.
That?
Yeah, they're building it.
It's
Things
insane.
are happening. That the field looks amazing. Howard Jones looks amazing. It's just, there's that buzz that's back. But again, it takes time. Don't get frustrated if it doesn't happen overnight. Chad Bowden's here. Rob freaking Ryan is on the roster now. We've got legendary Rob Ryan coaching linebackers. He's not even a head coach or a defense coordinator. He's coaching linebackers.
Yeah.
Here we got Chad Savage, who's a great recruiter. We've got a lot of pieces in place. Denton Lynn's back again, and he signed a new contract. It's so exciting. All these great things are happening. Just don't let that confuse you about things are going to happen right away. Now, I get that it has to translate to wins, or else none of this means anything.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't mean anything if it doesn't translate to wins. It's just, if it doesn't happen right away, it's okay, because you've got to lay a foundation and get to where you need to be. And Coach Riley had to make some difficult decisions the last couple of years to get to where we are now, but you can see things starting to go in the right direction. So it'll be fun to watch. But again, don't know if the playoffs or if it's going to happen right away, but I do believe that's a real possibility in the years to come.
It requires nuance to look at and analyze, and I know that's something that doesn't combine or mesh well with sports and the internet.
Yeah.
So, we'll see.
But I get it. At the end of the day, it's tough to celebrate moral victories.
Yeah.
You want to win right away. It's tough to be a fan and go, man, we lost 6-7 games this year. Let's be optimistic for next year, right? But although you can't let the losses all the time overshadow the progress. And I think that's so important to keep an eye on. But again, a lot of great things are happening. We can't talk about all of it, but I am very excited about the future of USC football.
Okay, we've now transitioned into the spring game discussion portion of the show. We have multiple questions.
Okay, good. Here we go.
About that. Yeah, I believe it broke during our hiatus that USC will not have a spring game this offseason. It's a trend that's happening in college football. I believe both Texas, Ohio State, a lot of schools are just not doing this.
Yeah.
And there's no real official reason, but I feel like I can kind of surmise why this has happened for a couple reasons.
We know.
We kind of know.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
First of all, if you know college football as a whole is paranoid, and the paranoia runs deep. And so I think partially it's because with the transfer portal and the frenzy that happens with that, I think teams wisely, to be honest, didn't want to be like, here's the display of who we have. Take a look. You know what I mean? They didn't want to just be like, here's our inventory.
Here's our backup guy who's not playing this year because there's a 5-star ahead of him who's going to be a stud in a couple years.
Yeah.
Come and get him.
Get him, please.
100%.
So I think that's one reason. Two, it's interesting, I think specifically, looking at West Coast, I feel like the attendance rate was just not really a thing. I feel like no matter on this coast who you looked at, it was always compared to the Nebraskas, the Oklahomas,
Alabama.
Where it's sold out, it's packed, and it's just not the case on the West Coast. We've talked about that. And I believe, and what I heard, which was interesting, it costs upwards of, it's 6 figures to put on the spring game, which for the university, for NIL, I don't know who specifically pays for that, but for example, say it's coming out of USC football's budget.
Yeah.
6 figures for a spring game, for a practice, where you could put that towards facilities.
You could
take that for
a lot better use
NIL,
of it. Yeah.
I don't know. And again, I don't know who pays for that specifically, but that's money that could be well spent in this era of college football elsewhere. So I think that also has to do with it. Injuries is another reason I've heard. So there's a lot of things that factor into it. And I think it was one of those things where once the domino of one program started to be like, we don't have to do this, everyone was like, cool, we don't have to either.
Yeah.
Sounds great. So it's unfortunate. We got some questions. I don't think I even talked about the questions we got. I think I just went into it. But Amy said, why no spring game? It's such a great way to get fans excited for fall. I feel like this is a little bit revisionist history. And I don't want to speak for Amy. I don't know her attendance record. But, like, I've been to the last decade plus of USC spring games, and they're not that well attended.
No, and it's only like half of the stadium where they even open the seats. No, not even full. They open the seats, half of the stadium, and it doesn't even get full all the way up to the press box to that side.
Like, is not a great look.
I get it though. Like it's I know when you see them on Twitter and everyone just goes in and everyone's like, oh well, look how we do it in the SEC, and you're not doing that. Well, it is what it is, but I do get to it's Saturday in Los Angeles, and there's a lot more things to do, and it's tough, getting down to the Coliseum in the area, and it's not an actual game. So I understand that, but I think you hit that perfectly with everything you said. I think the transfer portal absolutely plays a factor. The paranoia, let's not put our guys on tape that are really good, that aren't starters quite yet, so that other teams can come talk to them or come get them. Right? Let's keep the guys that we have here. Let's also not let other teams see what we're doing and how we're using these guys. Some of our opponents that we're going to play this year, the injury thing is a real factor. Now, you're going pretty hard at practice already during spring, and you can go full pads in the spring. So spring game was light compared to what we did in practice. So I don't know if that's an exact correlation, but I get it. How terrible if you're out there just, hey, let's get one series, and your starting receiver rolls his ankle. And for no reason. You're not winning a game that day.
Yeah.
So there's that part of it. Now, I do hate it for the fans. I get that. For the fans that do go, that are diehards, that attend every year.
Don't get me wrong on that regard.
No, 100%. But I'm with you on that. That's a valid point. The cost, everything that goes into that, when you don't get a sold-out crowd, you don't make up your money, or you don't, and I know it's not all about money, but in today's era of college football, you've got to have the next best facility, the next best this, the next best that. You've got to be able to support and fund your NIL and all these other things so that you can use the money in places that really matter, like building your roster and getting kids to come here. So then on Saturdays, when it's an actual game, the fans come, they're proud of the product on the field. But I'm glad we brought this up. I think that was very well said, Keely. And I do think, though, we can say all these other things, it comes down to how college football is nowadays. Let's not put things on film. Yeah, the paranoia of college football. That'll be the title of this segment now. The paranoia of college football and why spring games are gone. That's what it is.
And I mean, I feel like if I was a head coach, I would feel the same way. Like, heck no, I developed these guys. I'm not going to give them a showcase for you to just like try and poach them. And that's not saying that, like, of course we're pro players going where they want to and their free will, but like I'm putting myself in everyone's shoes, and I understand it all.
But it also could be kids, and I know they, and not getting too in depth. I don't know, and there's no tampering, there's no talking to, but people talk, right? Guys have teammates at other places. Guys see each other in the off season. Kids go different places that they grew up and practice with, and recruiting and coaches, and all these things do happen. Let's be honest about it. Just don't give them extra ammunition to go out and talk to a stud or a kid that's on your roster that maybe isn't a starter yet that might want to go elsewhere and do these other things. So I get it. It's a valid point. We're not the only ones doing it. There's a reason that other schools are doing it as well. So I promise you these conversations are happening elsewhere.
IGCWD said, since the spring ball game is gone, is there going to be any family-friendly event for fans this spring? A great question. I don't think so. Off the top of my head, I will keep you posted. Again, that's something where I think we have to gauge the fan interest for that. So we'll see. I will keep you posted. Brian said, will the lack of a spring game affect the quality of play during the season?
No. In my opinion, I've said this before, even when we had spring games, those 14 practices leading up to the spring game are far more important than the actual spring game. The spring game is just a glorified practice. It's just, let's go out there. It's touch. It's not even tackle. Do some 7-on-7. Do some 1-on-1s, right? Then we'll do a couple up and down 11-on-11. It's, I think, a 30-minute running clock, and it's very quick. And then let's go sign some autographs. It's very short. There's a lot more progress gained, and you learn a lot more about your football team in those first 14 practices inside Howard Jones than you do at the Coliseum on noon on Saturday for a spring game. Yes, it's a great spectacle for the fans and all of that, but no, those 14 practices are helping us prepare for the fall more than the spring game is.
Trojan Mom said, would you call this the best recruiting season that USC's had, especially with the local talent? So excited for spring ball. Fight on, she says.
Fight on. Yeah, I don't know if I could call it the best we've ever had, but I can tell you the excitement around it and the trajectory that it's going right now. It's got a lot of people who maybe weren't as excited about recruiting the last couple of years or last 5-10 years, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
It's gotten them back to, okay, we should be dominant in the recruiting era. We should be dominant in transfer portal. We should have the number 1 class or a top 5 class every single year, and we're starting to see that. So, yeah, the excitement is back 100%. Now, can I say the best class or the most exciting class we've ever had? time will tell, right? And those guys got to pan out when they get here as well, and it's got to translate to wins. But yeah, USC recruiting is going absolutely in the right direction right now. We're building that wall around California, which is great to see, like Chad Bowden said.
It's also, I feel like it's also worth noting, it's impressive in the sense that, like, not only was this expected of USC in like 2015, but the rules of engagement in 2015 versus 2025, which first of all, the fact that that's a decade later is gross. But
yeah.
the fact
Don't
that
age us.
I know, sorry. The fact that it is, they're doing it in this new era of college football, the way that they are with a #1 recruiting class for 2026 is impressive because the rules of engagement are so different, and the fact that they've been able to master that and kind of evolve in that sense is impressive.
Learn and adapt or you get left behind. You really do. And other schools are going to start separating themselves. So it's exciting. That's why you go get Chad Bowden. That's why you go get Danton Lynn. That's why you go get and Lincoln Riley. That's why you have guys like that here that can compete with these other schools once they get the foundation in place. Now they understand it a little bit better. They're starting to, the NIL, House of Victory is on the up and up. So it's great to see. Shout out to the fans too that donate, all of you involved. I promise you we see stuff on Twitter too about fans. I'm not saying go talk to recruits, but I'm saying when you make them feel welcome before they even get here or when they do commit or they sign, you love that. As a former player, it was so exciting after I signed. This was back, Facebook was really the time back then. Let me age myself a little bit more.
Yeah.
But once I signed, it was comments, messages, fight on, can't wait to have you here at USC. You love that because you feel a part of the Trojan family before you even step foot on campus.
Yeah,
so shout out to the fans as well for helping this recruiting get to where it is.
Jay said, CK, what's your order at Salty's? Saw you looking all swole, he says.
Okay, swole?
Yeah.
I don't know. Okay.
You say this in your baby tea this episode?
I know. I got the tight one. We had a conversation if this was too small or not. But I've been working out hard this offseason. I'm on a bulk right now, getting ready to start my cut soon. Get ready for summer.
Oh, goodness, your cut.
But, Jay, I appreciate the shout-out on the bulkiness. That's been working hard in the weight room. So I don't know if he's talking about recently. I took a photo. So anyways, long story short, Salty's is a famous restaurant back in Bakersfield. I did a episode of Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives with Guy Fieri.
What? Have you said this before?
You don't know this? I get it all the time on Twitter. I did an episode. So
We're
long
gonna do
story
some film
short.
breakdown.
Long story short, I'm back. This is in January. So I'm back after, I think, my sophomore year, after that bowl game against Fresno State.
Maybe you have told me about this, yes.
So I go to Bakersfield. Jeff Salters owns the place called Salty's. Wonderful guy. His family's awesome. I know his family. He texts me and says, hey, are you around? I was just happened to be back. I said, I am. He said, we're filming Diners, Dive-Ins, and Drives. Guy's producer or manager, one of the guys is a big SC fan, wanted to see if you wanted to come over and hang out for a little bit. I said, yeah, I'm not doing anything, right? Just got done throwing, came over. We were hanging out. He went over to Dick's Sporting Goods across the street, bought a couple footballs. I signed them for his boys, and we were just talking. They get ready to start filming the segment. Guy goes, hey, you want to hop on and do a segment with us? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. I've been there for like an hour or so. My dad, my uncle come down. My dad had to go back to work, actually, so he missed it. But my Uncle Larry is sitting there, and he's like, you two hop on. Let's do a little segment. So we're sitting there, and he's like, you know, it's a good place when USC starting quarterbacks here. Tell us about Salty's. And I'm sitting there just doing are you looking it up right now?
Sorry, yes.
It's on the website. So anyways, long story short, we do the episode. It was so cool, too. I mean, Guy Fieri was awesome. That their entire crew, it was so much fun filming that. But anyways, I went back this last weekend to Bakersfield to introduce my newborn to some of our family members and meet everybody. And I went over to Salty's, and Jeff Salters was there. We took a photo. So I don't know if Jay's referencing that because I was in a cutoff because I was coming straight from the gym to pick up a Salty Special, which is the best barbecue sandwich on the face of this planet.
Wow. Okay.
I know we have no I am not sponsored anything. I will promote them. Yeah, I will promote them regardless. But I get the Salty Special. That's the answer to Jay's question, with a side of spicy mac and cheese. And it is the best barbecue you will ever have. I just spoke to Jeff too, and I was begging him to please get a location down south, LA, Newport where I'm at, or Irvine, that area. Just whatever it takes, I will help fund it. Whatever you need, I'll invest.
Wow.
We need to get a Salty's down here in Southern California.
Well, lucky for you, I could not find it in the 30 seconds that I searched, but trust me, I will.
You're going to laugh at how different I look too. This was post Fresno State bowl game, right? Sophomore year, was feeling myself, excited, got MVP. I was the best thing ever. Went home.
Is this when you gained weight?
Yeah, I gained about 230 pounds. Was drinking. Actually, let me not say that because I wasn't 21. Was eating Doritos and Cheetos.
Okay, sure. And you've chronicled this on this show.
Yeah, got to about 236, and you can tell in that video. And then and the funny thing too, during that episode when we were filming, they do retakes if like something happens, or and the napkin kept flying away, so we had to do retakes, but they bring you more and more food back if you keep going. I ate like 2 or 3 Salty Specials in like a 15-20 minute segment, and like would eat half of it, and they're like, hold on, we need rebring it. Like and they would tell you to eat while you're doing it.
You're an actor.
But editing-wise, they wanted to look like it was full and ready and stuff. Yeah. But yeah, it was a cool episode. But it's funny. We'll find it. Yeah, it was just on the other day. They just aired it I think, last Saturday. Yeah.
Wow. The more you know.
Yeah, there you go.
Alrighty, final question of the episode. And I purposely kept it last so that Sam would wait with bated breath.
We got a Sam question. Here we go.
On whether or not I would ask it, because apparently I'm in the doghouse. He says,
what?
I know Keely kind of shadow banned me from asking questions, especially ones that aren't 100% on topic, but I'm going to try anyway. Sam, this is not true.
Wait,
Sam,
you shadow banned Sam?
I did not shadow ban Sam, and he knows this. He's starting trouble.
Get her.
No, do not. He said, Cody, can we get a recap of what your NFL Network experience was like? Were you more nervous for your first start at USC or your first appearance on Good Morning Football?
Oh, that's tough because, let me say this. I'll start with this. I don't have one bad thing to say about Good Morning Football, and I'll tie this all in, I promise. But from the video, the sound guy, everyone behind the scenes, to the producers, to the co-hosts. My first week was with Manti Te'o and Jamie Erdahl. They were amazing. Peter Schrager was in New York. Then we had Kyle Brandt came back. DeMarco Farr, who's on ESPN LA, he came in for a guest appearance. Josh Morrow, his name's Nick on The Young and Restless. I learned this. I don't watch those soap operas, but
neither do I.
He is an unbelievable person. And then we had Gabriel Iglesias as a guest, just the people you met. Brian Bumgarner from The Office, Kevin from The Office.
Oh my gosh.
I asked him a chili question, which was pretty funny. I've known Brian for a while now, but it was just the way that show is ran.
It was such a casual drop.
Well, from Athletes First, we do a classic, and he would come to those classic events, so we would hang out before. But it was just everything that they did, from the production meeting at 3:30 a.m. That was tough, the start time. I would get to the offices. The offices are right next to SoFi, right? The NFL Network, and where they film everything downstairs is right next to SoFi. I would get there every day at 3 a.m. Right, so I would leave my house at 2:15.
The crazy part is, this is also bad on my part, but I was going to bed at like 2:30 before your first night, and I was like, "Good luck. I hope it's great." Like whenever you wake up, and you texted me, "Thanks," and I was like, "Wait, oh my god!"
I was already I was in the car driving to SoFi Stadium at that point.
Insane.
Yeah, but then we would do a production meeting at 3:30. So that was maybe the only thing I'd say was tough, but
sure,
I loved it. The good thing was I was on a flip schedule with my newborn, so I was already staying up.
True.
So I went full graveyard shift employee. Like I would sleep from noon to 7 p.m. and then be up from 7 p.m. to noon. Like I was full flipped, which helped. So that was my nighttime doing the show. But anyways, it was so cool. I was a little nervous when I found out I was doing it, but then after I got my first script and did my prep, I take a lot of pride, Keely knows, in my preparation. I wasn't nervous because I knew what I was talking about, and I was confident in what I was talking about, and I knew I know my stuff.
Yeah.
And not to hype myself up, but it makes it a lot easier when you get out there and they can ask you questions that you're prepared for, or questions you might not be prepared for, but I over-prepare. So if topic's 1A, I learned 1B, 1C, anything that could kind of branch off of that.
Yeah.
So no, I wasn't very nervous. I would say I was more nervous for my first game, although I was over-prepared for that as well. Going out there and performing and getting hit and doing all those things at the college level is a little crazy. But yeah, Good Morning Football was so cool. I got really close to it. Their producers wanting to come back and can't give too much away, but yeah, some things have happened since then.
Interesting.
Off of that and elsewhere, some other people have reached out. So
what Cody is saying is enjoy the time that he's on this show, people. But he's not saying that, I am.
What I'm saying is thank you so much to them for that opportunity, because it opened a lot of doors. Because I was prepared, Sam, and I wasn't nervous, and I felt like, obviously I'm not trying to brag, the feedback I got was very good, right? So it was cool. But I'll say this, the reason I wasn't that nervous too, and I said it earlier, Manti Te'o. I'm not even joking. Like I got there.
It looks so fun.
I got there, and it's so much fun. I got there, and Bill, the producer, comes and greets me at the front door at 2:45 a.m. or 3 a.m. Gina's with him, Becky, some of the people that work there. They're showing me around. They show me the locker room, the green room, all this other stuff, the hair and makeup, everything. I'm like, okay, cool. Manti Te'o walks in after our production meeting. He goes, hey, let me show you the green room. And I was like, I've already seen it. I don't care, brother. Puts his arm around me, pulls me in, and we start looking. He goes and shows me everything. And we talked for about 20 minutes before we went out there. And he's like, dude, we're going to have fun. We're going to make it fun. Jamie was awesome too. So just welcoming. So I felt like I'd been doing that show for 10 years, and it was my first day.
The chemistry you guys had was so
it was
fun
cool.
to watch.
It was awesome. So Sam, thank you for that question. I appreciate it. Short answer, I was probably more nervous for my first start at USC at quarterback than I was for that, just because of it's a little bit easier to sit down and talk instead of having a 300-pounder trying to hit you while you're trying to make decisions in the matter of a split second.
Yes.
But yeah, it was fun. But again, I gave him some tips. Nothing as professional as here at the Victory Podcast. They're not quite on our level yet.
Oh,
but hopefully Good Morning Football, which is on national television, can get there one day.
I mean, they don't have producer Emily or Crash.
They don't.
So,
there you go.
I mean,
that's awesome.
Yeah. Alrighty, Cody. That's gonna wrap it up, I believe.
Yeah.
That's all the questions we have. Like I said, we will be back as soon as I can, but not too soon. We want the women of Troy to
let's
win.
Go.
But Cody, I know I had to throw it to you before we wrap it up.
No, I'm done. I miss you guys. It's good to be back in studio. We've been doing at-home episodes with my newborn. My son Brooks is doing amazing. He's awesome. He's so much fun. He's getting a personality now.
He's such a
My wife
guy.
Paige is a freaking rock star. My dog Coda has been great too. So Kessler family's doing good. We're excited. It's been a lot of fun. But it does feel a little bit better to be back in studio and do these episodes as much as I enjoy doing it at home. So we're glad we're back. Fight on. Love you guys. Excited for spring ball. Like you said, when we get back, we'll hopefully have some more topics to talk about.
Awesome. Alrighty, that's going to wrap it up. Thanks so much for tuning in. That's Cody. I'm Keely. We'll see y'all next time.